How's everybody doing tonight? Let me figure out what I got going on. Let's see. Okay. Hold on. Let everybody roll in. Let me figure out what I got going on. Let everybody roll in. So let's see. Let's see. What is that? Let's see. How's everybody doing tonight? Let me trying to get my setup setting. Struggle streaming. Let's see. Where am I? What's up, Before the Billions? Glad you can join me. I think, as you say, you got the number one spot. Dr. Finesse in the house. Let me get my stuff together. Let's see, I'm struggle streaming. Let's see. That's it. Let's see. Is that it? I got too many windows open. That's not working. What's up, Larry? Glad you can join me. Not one spot. Said I got to get them sound effects like you got going on. Let me figure out why can't I? Let me unshare and reshare. I got too many windows going on. Let's see. That's it. Let's see. I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. You know how we do it. If you got, shout out to Justin. What's going on? I've been lazy. I ain't checked my PBO email in a couple of days, so I'll check that after that. If anybody need to reach me, just ping me. I'm a little behind. Shout out to Dr. Finesse. I know he DM'd me on Discord. I ain't looked at that yet either. I am struggling today. I think I'm going on vacation or stuff. I don't know. Long story short, you sit NIST 800-128, guide for security-focused configuration management of information systems. Let's see, what date is that? I think that was a little old on the date. Somebody reached out to me and said they saw that in a job placement on Indeed. I just didn't remember the 128, so I had to look that up. So I just decided to, hey, let's do a stream on it. Configuration management. So people know a lot of times that I do NIST. That's my SME-ness, my subject matter expert. I've been doing it for about 15 years, 17 years. So just trying to keep up on the NIST, different NIST special publications, and just make sure I'm comfortable with that. Kind of that's what I do for a living. If you look at NIST, as I always say, organizationally defined. My SME is I work for the Department of Revenue, so I do an IRS, which is IRS Pub 1075. I got a video out there. It's a couple years old. I'm probably going to update it and do the new one. So I usually do NIST for the IRS. So that's kind of where my once again, my subject matter expert, what I do for a living. These NIST streams, you do help me go into detail during the interview. Shout out. That's true. Let me know, Justin, if you want me to dig in a special publication. I'm about to go back over to NIST 800-53R5. It got split up into 3 different publications. It's 800-53, then A and B. So I'm ready to dig down into that. Like I said, I've been doing this for like 15 plus years. So that's kind of what I'm super comfortable with. And I tell people, especially if you're doing federal work or even private industry trying to do federal work, NIST, I think it's going to go on the CMC, which is still based on NIST 171. So I appreciate you. Like I said, if you got any questions you want to shoot me in here or ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com, Justin, you can always reach out to me. Most of those I could probably answer off the top of my head. So let's get going. Long story short, I went to an AWS event. It's called Indie AWS. So that's kind of why I'm starting a little later today. Once again, trying to work on them AWS skills, trying to get into the cloud. So the cloud is now not in the future. So I'm trying to get better at it. So let's get started. So you said 800, 128. What is basic configuration? So I'm just going to kind of smooth through this. I'm not going to read all those bullet points, but configuration management comprised of collective, actively focused, established, maintaining integrity of that. What is a configuration item? Is an identifiable part of a system, hardware, software, documentation. I used to do release management. So I used to build the software. So we had an Oracle database, so I had to compile PL SQL, compile a Java, then I had to build a release package. So in the old day, a CI was a table. A CI could be a column. A CI could be a primary key, right? But we would build that, and that will make what? The baseline configurations. A set of specifications for a system, CI within a system that's formally reviewed and agreed upon at a given point in time. So I will build the software. Everybody would sign off on it's good. Then we have a list. This is the table in the version. This is the column. These are the primary keys. These are the Java packages, right? You compile them. So all of that creates a baseline. Now, the cool thing is, and I talk a little bit about that at the end is infrastructure as code now, right? So now you got your VMs in there. You got your servers, right? You got your databases, right? So you have your whole infrastructure now. Usually you would have your servers and stuff built up so that you would, in your database, then your specific tables and stuff inside the database would be CIs, or your code inside your virtual machine. But now all of that's configuration, because now we building all that, right? Cloud formation, Ansible. There's a ton of ways to do it. But now all of that together is your baseline configuration, because now we're doing infrastructure as code, right? So a configuration management plan is a comprehensive description of roles, responsibilities, and procedures that apply within the management of configuration products. The basic part of a CM plan includes the configuration control board, establishment of charter or group of qualified people, configuration items, identifications, methods for selecting and naming those configurations, configuration change control, and configuration monitoring. Process for assessing, testing the level of compliance with your established baseline, a mechanism for reporting on configuration status. Now we use Rapid7. We're going to talk about that. LexisNexis. You can use System Manager inside AWS. It'll give you a list of all your VMs and what you spin up and what's active at the time. So now how do you monitor it? How do you identify it? Because to be able to secure it, you got to know what you have out there, right? Especially with infrastructure code. Now some of it comes up and some of it goes down, right? Depending on how much you need, depending on what you set your parameters at, right? But so now how do you get a good configuration management baseline on how you need to keep track of it? So the security part of that is using the CIS benchmark. Shout out to Mr. Finesse and Chris. You can use those to scan and make sure you harden at a certain level. Right now will be your security baseline. Are you using IRS Pub 1075? Are you using schisms? Are you using STIGs? Are you using CIS checks? Right? Are you using best practices? AWS had those. But what is your baseline and what are you hardening at to say this is the benchmark you're trying to meet from a security perspective? And that's where the security part of 128 comes in. All right, so let's see if there's any questions. I got to get 2 monitors. I'm being lazy. So let's see. Let's see right here. I had interviews today. I have to tell you, oh, that's cool. We can go offline. I could come over to your Discord B2B. We could talk about it. Hope it went well, but we can catch up on that. So you said security focused configuration management. SecCM is the management and control of secure configurations for a system enables security that facilitates the management of risk. Right? Security and risk go hand in hand, right? builds on a general concept, process, and activities of configuration management by the attention of implementation of established security requirements of the organization, identification of records of configuration that impact security, security risk with the approval of the initial configuration, the analysis of the security implementation and changes, documentation of approved implemented changes. So when I used to work at DoD, every change we made, we had to do a security impact, right? What's the risk of this change? Can we roll back? What's the system configuration to make this secure? Once again, the CIS checks or benchmarks. What are we hardening on the Active Directory? What are we hardening on Windows? What are we hardening on SQL Server to make sure this is a secure system configuration? The tool you should be able to document that is what is that particular changes. Because when you look at packages or updates, these tell you these are the new things added, these are the changes, and these are the improvements, right? We used to call that a README file in the old days, right? So what's your README? So when people look at it, or the developers look at it, or the infrastructure guys, they know what you add and changing and taking out so they can make sure it was done properly. Right? I don't think you do that as much as anymore, right? You just roll stuff out and it just magically appears, right? So, but I tell people that's what you get when you get stuff for free, right? So I think you just roll stuff out. So this is the 4 phases of secure configuration management: planning, identify and implement the configuration, controlling the configuration changes, and monitoring those changes. So we're going to look at what is called AWS config. It could monitor changes into your application. So say you have a S3 bucket and it's encrypted. If somebody took the encryption off, you can actually have it put the encryption back on, or at least email security that configuration is changed and you're out of compliance. So we'll check what does that look like for monitoring and controlling configuration changes, and who can make that, and who validates that change is appropriate and can be made even at a high level, right? So if you look at, like my man said, it's the NIST 800-53 controls for configuration management. Usually we're at moderate, which is in the middle. So policies and procedure, baseline. Looking at automation of support for accuracy and currency. We're going to look at AWS config and how will that help us. Retention of previous configuration. We was talking about infrastructure as code, right? So if you need to roll back to an older version because you found a bug or it broke something, you can go back to a previous configuration and just roll that forward, right? Or if you're doing A and B testing and you figure out that you want to test B and B fail, you can automatically have it roll back to A, and A could be the previous configuration right there. CM-23. CM-26, the development of test environments, configuration system components for high-risk areas, configuration change control, right? And these are the subcategories on there. Testing and validation. Do you have a test area, and are you using test data or production data? I see a lot of people using production data. PBO gets very upset. I'm talking to the third person. I don't like people using production data. Security and privacy representatives. So now they want you to have a named person or role that handles that for your organization, especially if you're a large organization. Then 2 is you see CM4 impact analysis. When you do this change, is what part of the systems are you affecting? Do you know that? Right? And a lot of people don't know that. Verification of controls. Once again, we're going to look at AWS config and AWS inspectors that can scan that or actually change those back. Access to restrictions for changes. Who can make those changes and who cannot, and configuration settings at the bottom, right? We were just looking at the moderate in the middle. But 2 is, sometimes we want to do big boy security and do high, right? A lot of times high is usually life or death. You talk about missiles, nuclear power plants. I'm saying nuclear power plants, and high stuff for life to death. A lot of times if we're working a lot of those changes, it's usually a couple things in there. So you can automatically make those changes. Automated documentation notification and prohibition of changes. Once again, I think we can do that in AWS config. Crypto management right there. We definitely going to be using AWS KMS, which is AWS Key Managed Services. So they manage for that. You can manage the keys, or you can like AWS. So a lot of times you're super close to high controls. So with the way people are hacked, if you can't do high controls, I would say doing them, then actually you looking more impressive, and obviously you're not negligent, and you're doing due care to things you're supposed to be doing. Let's see. Yep. Oh, shout out to my man Keep It Techie. I always give him a shout out. He the first one interviewed me on YouTube, got me started. Definitely one of the day ones and OG. So I always shout out to him. I could tell when Keep It Techie share my stuff. I'm like, man, I got my count's a little higher. Shout out to Keep It Techie. I always helping the old guy out. Glad he can join us. Definitely check him out. Doing that Linux, my first love. So I probably start doing more AWS using Amazon Linux, which is a fork of Red Hat. So definitely, shout out to my man GMR, bringing great stuff here. Definitely go check out my man Before the Billions, growing his YouTube channel, went viral. Checking him doing some good things out, showing everybody that tech industry's tough out there, man. It's hard to make it out there, but got faith in my man Young, making big moves. So let's keep going. But you've seen it right there. So NIST, usually go low, moderate, high. Looking at the moderate right there. So those are some of the things. And two, you're not far from the high. So it's just a few more checks to get the high. So I always tell people, if I'm doing something, especially for a government agency, let's try to get those high controls in there too. Two, number ones, that looks good. And a lot of times, if you do a couple highs, you can use those for compensating controls if you could get some other stuff accomplished, right? Because a lot of times, things in those same areas you can use for compensating controls. So definitely want to get into those highs. And we're going to start digging a little bit more into those NISTs and digging down into those control families and talking about real world implementation from a GRC perspective. I seen a young lady talking about she doesn't like technical part of GRC. She for some reason she didn't like that, or it's not approved. I usually divide GRC in a section: management, policies and procedures, those special publications, those documents. Like we're looking at configuration management, a huge document. This is a secure part on that. Incident response is big time. So there's 3 or 4 bigger documents that part of your security film people want to see. Then the engineering part of that is, how do we harden it? How do we do the CIS checks? How do we do the stick? Shout out to Keep It Techie. What are you going to click on Amazon Linux to secure it, right? We're not talking about paperwork now. What is that switch? Active Directory. How are you going to harden it? How are you going to set up your OUs? How are you going to move your laptops in the OUs and make sure they're hardened with the CIS check? That is security engineering, right? That's a different level, right? So there's management, technical side, and I kind of sit in the middle, right? So you can do both. So you really need both sides, especially in a government installation. You need that paperwork, but you need to put boots on the ground, and that's really hardening to make sure that happens. So let's keep rolling. If anybody got any, see what my man always join us, Jupiter 1000 time X. I did. I probably do a video. AT&T just giving away data. They done got hit like 4 times in the last 4 years. Poor AT&T. AT&T need to be giving people phone service free for a couple of years. They been getting tore up out here, man. So yeah, I'll probably do a video like on that. I've been slacking a little bit, but yeah, poor AT&T. That's what my mama would say. Polar AT&T, man. Here's the other part of configuration management: least functionality, right there in moderate. So you need to work with the business to make sure they're dividing their functions up to make sure you don't have too many privileges. The basic one is I write the check and can cast the check, right? You need to make sure those are separate. Periodic review, we're going to talk about that. Prevent program execution. So how do you make sure only people can install software and run software that they're supposed to have? Confined environments with limited privileges. System component inventory. That's big. How do you keep track of, especially, when I was at the state, they had 30,000 devices, phones, laptops, because they are a state agency. automatic unauthorized component detection. So if somebody clicks something on your network, will it click or will it block them out and block their port? All right. Configuration management plan. That's one of the plans we got to make sure we have there. And the NIST, and we're looking at it, NIST 800-128, they have a template for the configuration management plan. Actually, I probably would use ChatGPT 4 to generate it for me as a template, then cut stuff custom for the client or the business you're working for. Software usage restriction, user installed software, right? Once again, you should block it so only the certain people can install software. Information location. Sometimes we talk about data sovereignty. It's a cute word meaning if you're a federal government, you can only run stuff in the United States, right? So there's certain government entities you can't run anything out of CONUS, which is continental United States. So those are some things. Once again, configuration management. We're gonna dig down a little deeper in another video. We just touching the surface, right? So once again, the moderate. Let's go back to this is the one. So when people talk about doing risk assessment, risk assessment, assessments for software, SaaS services, this is just configuration management things. These are the things you got to ask to make sure the company you're doing business has these things. Do they have policies and procedures? Are they doing controls, right? Are they doing impact analysis? All right. So when you do with government and you're doing risk assessment, these are some of the things you got to check off to make sure that other companies doing it. Because if they get hacked, they're going to ask you, did you do a risk assessment and ask for these things, right? Or at least check to make sure they were doing some of these things, right? So I've done risk assessment, for over a decade. So a lot of times, especially if I'm dealing with little companies, a lot of people do them as questionnaires. These are some of the questionnaires. Do you have this? Do you have a configuration plan? Do you have a configuration manager? How are you releasing software? What's your encryption? What's your FIPS 140-2, 3, or 4, right? So from a risk assessment, these are the things you have to be comfortable with because you have to ask other companies, are they doing this? So they don't get you hacked and your company ends up on the news, right? So those are the kind of things we're trying to prevent. Let's see what's going on. Aiken, salute. My man Christopher makes you wonder if they just sell it and use the breach as an excuse. That's a good point as a conspiracy. No, that's a good point. Salute to Ty. Salute to Chaos Rain. I see you out there doing good work. Shout out to the Red Pill. I see him out there. I'll be checking him out in the clouds. Check out Ty. Giving OG. Keep it techie. What's good, PBO, bro? You get me out here really thinking hard about risk assessment mitigation. I got a couple of videos on that bit, Nave, and if you got anything, just shoot me an email. I do. When I was at the state, I looked at all the software that came in the Department of Revenue, me and a couple other guys, but I kind of took the lead on that. So two is that's especially from a GRC. I think that's things, especially bigger companies are starting to do that. But yeah, you got to do your risk assessment and your mitigation. Because if you don't, realistically, you're negligent. So if for some reason, you see it in the news, third-party company gets this company hacked, right? But you're responsible for your third party, right? So if you're not reviewing your third party, realistically, you are negligent, big name. So I think a lot of people don't realize. And I'm gonna start interviewing. I got a couple I call them legal people that do IT contracts. We always talk about indemnification, your cyber insurance. And now times you can't get cyber insurance unless you're doing third-party assessments because insurance company knows if you're not doing that, that's going to get you hacked, right? And they don't want to pay out that cyber insurance because once again, you're negligent, right? So, and two is I think if you're interviewing and you're trying to get in the industry, I think you need to mention that because I think a lot of companies are missing that, especially medium to small companies. They're missing that inside their teams. I don't think anybody's really doing that. So if you get in there, I think you should at least do a risk assessment. Everything after RMF, after risk is identity. No, I wouldn't say that. It's part of it, but yeah. Because really, after you do your risk, now we're talking about 800-53. I would call identity, but I would call it more implementation. Because usually when you talk about RFMF, you're talking about the risk of possibly something happening, right? Risk of 85, NIST 800-53 is I'm rolling my sleeve up. What are we doing to harden Active Directory? We got that coming up. What are we doing to harden? Shout out Keep It Techie, Red Hat, Ubuntu. I think Keep It Techie like Ubuntu a little better. They got Stigs out for that. So I think Jupiter, after that, really you get an implementation. I think risk management framework is more at the management level. This is the type of risk if we do this. This is the type of risk if we implement IRS Pub 1075. But I think after RMF is implementation, right? We rolling our sleeves up and how we harden this, how are we doing, and we talked about this, network segmentation for zero trust, right? So I think that's when you start getting dirty, not identity. I think you get more implementation, which is part of the identity. How are you setting up the IAM? But I think really after RMF, you talking about implementation. Let's roll our sleeves up. How we configure it? What's our network segmentation? What database are we using? What's encryption? How are we making sure everything else is using TLS? Right. But once again, I think it's more IAM passwords, but I think it's more implementation of everything, right? Yep, that too, MFA. But once again, I think it's your network configuration before you even start doing this. What's your segmentation of that? And I'm not a big network guy. Facts. Right. So shout out to my man, Network Bruh. He's been MIA. I think he's got a good job. But I used to go over there and we used to do Stig of the day for his network. He used to do Cisco labs. Shout out to my man, you know, the OG lab every day, Dewan. He started off in networking. Right. And I'm gonna start doing that. And part of AWS is how are you doing configuration of your network and your network segmentation. AWS says, here's your VPC, you set it up, right? So what does that look like? Now we're talking about security networks, security architecture. I work with those guys. I've had architecture in my title before, but what does that look like? You working with the Cisco guys, say this is zero trust. This is segmentation. This is where our apps are. This is where our application servers are. This is where our database. You can't get from the web tier to the database tier. You got to go to an admin tier and go to a bastion host. Like you said with your MFA on there. Honeypot. Nah, I'll never do no honeypot, man. Honeypot, if you can afford this. But no fire with the reason I don't do a honeypot, Jupiter 1000 times ISIS. Most companies not mature enough to handle a honeypot. If you let somebody on your network with a honeypot and somehow they got out of that hardened honeypot, got out of that hard network, and they got into your network, man, that's gonna be considered gross negligence. So I never do a honeypot, Jupiter. To me, I'm not inviting bad guys on my network, man. That's not something I do. PBO ain't that confident in the network team, so I'm never doing a honeypot, honey net, none of that. You could go to OWASP and practice that. I wish somebody would be in a production I'm responsible for. Talk about a honeypot. That's a no. But I'm old and conservative, dude. No. I'm not no honeypot, no honey net, no honey VM. I'm not letting people on purpose get inside my. Because if they get inside and somehow they pivot east and west and they get loose on your network, no, that's negligent, dude. I'm never doing a honeypot. That sound cool. That sound cool in the lab, but I don't do that in real life, man. So let's keep going, man. What's your thoughts on that, Jupiter? I just don't let people. Everybody chime in there. I'm not letting people. A honeypot means you configure it less, so bad guys can get on that VM, get on that network. Then you can research how they're moving around inside that particular VM or honeynet, part of a subnet or VLAN you let them get into. But if they got loose and they got in something else because you just lock up your honeypot, nah, that's too much risk, man, from a legality standpoint. So I ain't never doing that, Jupiter. Everybody chime in. What's their thoughts on that? Let's keep going. Planning at the organizational level. That's what we just got through talking about. Management, kind of from an RMF level. So what are they talking about? Following subsection describe planning phase activities that are normally conducted on an organizational level. mission, or business. The subsection are listed in order in which the planning activities typically occur, and I got that broken down. Organization has the flexibility to determine what are those activities. Planning organizational level, once again, at the secure configuration management, documented, and policy levels. We already talking about the policies and procedures that provide directions and support for the organization of individual systems within the organization, right? So policies and procedures, what is management vision and how and what they want to do from an organizational level, right? So a lot of times we say secure data for the IRS, secure PII for an organization. So what is secure, right? At the policy level, you don't really talk about encryption. They don't talk about MFA. It talks about we're securing it, right? The organization wants to secure. Now, the implementation of that and how you do it is going to be in a procedure, but from a policy level, it's just the organization's overall arching things of things they want to focus on. So policy normally include purpose of objectives and establishment. You see right there, standard one scope, roles, activities, common secure configurations, federal organizational-wide standard benchmarks, configuration and settings, along with how to address them. Once again, people know I used to work for the Department of Revenue. So our federal guideline, the IRS has IRS Pubs 1075s is how do they want you to secure IRS data if you get it, right? So from that point, that would be a common security configuration. Records of the configuration management activities can be maintained. Information including the type of records, writing and keeping the records, and procedures for protecting, access, and auditing. Right, so the IRS says this is how you need to audit a SQL Server database. This is what you need to audit inside an Oracle database. It shows you what you need to audit inside of a MongoDB database. So the IRS specifically tells you what to audit for a particular technology, right? So that will be the secure configuration of what you need to do for that particular technology or procedure in your organization, right? So that's the documentation. When you get audited, that's what they're going to want to see. Once again, I cut this out of 800-53. So it talks about baseline configuration. And what, like we said before, you see B1, organizationally defined frequency. Once again, an organization I usually do as far as the IRS. So the IRS tells you specifically what they want you to do. When the requirements due, that's yearly from the IRS. And when system components are installed, then you see the enhanced controls there, baseline configuration, automation support for accuracy and currency. We're going to talk about AWS config at the bottom. So it can says if anything changed, it can actually put that that change back in there, or it could report those changes. Well, most of the times I have it do both, right? So if somebody changes it and I have AWS config put it back, I want to know who's changing it because I got to go have a conversation with them, right? So let's talk about the discussion. That's why I like the 53. Automated mechanism to help organization maintain a consistent baseline configurations for system includes configuration management tools, hardware, software, firmware, inventory tools, and network management tools. Automated tools can be used for organizational level missions and business process level or system levels on the workstation, servers, notebooks. Shout out to Keep It Techie. They use Ansible as one of the most popular ones. I use AWS Cloud Formation. There's 2 or 3 out there where it does those automated builds for you. And if something changes, it can actually put that change back, right? That's the automated mechanism they're talking about. See if there's any questions. Let's see. My opinion, I need to know my threats. That's what MITRE's for, Jupiter. MITRE has a whole website. That's what they do. No, but I hear what you say. The only issue with that, and I don't disagree with that, is you're only going to see a small subset of what attacks you, Jupiter. When you go to MITRE, they take stuff from a national perspective. They take stuff from all the big guys because it's a private federal stuff. Yeah, facts. That's why I don't do, I know you know, that's why I don't do my own honeypot, because that's what MITRE does, right? The MITRE's they're gonna give you the TTPs, they're gonna give you the techniques, processes, and all that, how they're attacked. So I use MITRE, and if you look at AWS CloudWatch, you can actually upgrade that with the MITRE, and it'll use MITRE to figure out if somebody's, what kind of attack they're using, Cozy Bear, if it's somebody from China or Russia, but no, facts. So that's why I use MITRE, but I understand what you're saying. Just for me personally, I would use MITRE, but they much better than me. Then I can put that in. Shout out to Splunk. They're a $1 billion, 800-pound gorilla. They got MITRE built into their SIEM. That's why it costs so much. But you see it right there. So baseline configuration, we broke it down. Automation support for accuracy and current. I can't even talk currency. Right. So once again, we were going to talk a little bit about AWS config and that. We're going to talk a little bit about Rapid7 and a couple other AWS tool inspectors, how they can help you with that automation to make sure, once again, you keep your secure configuration baseline tight, right? So any changes, you have a meeting, a CCB control board to go over any changes and any new rules you want to do. And once again, every year, IRS is making changes. Shout out MITRE is making changes. CIS checks is making changes. So a lot of those out there making changes and, updating and getting better, right? So I like to use those specific things. Let's keep rolling. Develop an organizational procedure. You can use templates, establish templates related to secure configuration that integrates with the organization. Templates may be developed with the security configuration plans, system procedures, component inventory. Describe how components are managed within the inventory, how new components are added to inventory, what information for each component is tracked, and how updates may include remove or retire components. If automated tools are used or to be used factories, such as how often will they be administered and who will have access, and how will they be audited as described, right? So once again, we'll be using those AWS services to keep track of those components to make it a little easier for you. But once again, getting those baseline. And we'll look at those. They have templates inside the NIST 800 128 special publications. If you look at the back, Appendix D through E, those are templates you can look at and use. So now I use those a lot, especially for bigger clients. My goal hopefully is to get that into Office 365, get that in Planner, and so you can check some box and build your own templates out the box. And if you're doing IRS or HIPAA, it'll build you some specific base templates for you to get started with for that particular compliance to help you get started. We talked about this. Baseline identifies the steps for creation of baseline, content of the baseline, how do you get it approved, maintenance of the baseline, when should it be updated and by whom. Once again, requirements from OMB, laws such as HIPAA for accountability. Once again, I do a ton of IRS. Common secure configurations, identifying commonly recognized and standardized secure configurations to be applied on to your configuration items. The common secure configuration and these procedures are derived from federal, organizational, industry specific, national checklist program, United States government configuration baseline, defense information systems. That's what I usually do. The DISA security check line, CIS. Shout out to Chris. He's got that built into Trello. So those are known, once again, secure baselines. And once again, this is built on top of NIST. So once again, I'm NIST, so I usually going to use the DISA or the CIS could be used for hardening checks. And that's the secure baseline for what you're using. So what does that mean? The CIS or the DISA has Oracle database. So if I'm using Oracle, it shows you the hardening settings that should be set on an Oracle database. And if you can't set them right, that's the deviation and the gap. Either you're going to get a poem and fix that in the future, or you're going to accept that risk and show what's your compensating control so that couldn't be taken advantage of. So when you're talking about security, that's kind of what that's rolling up into. See what my man Cyber Levi. Thanks for joining us. Will you catch them sooner with the honeypots if you have fake import files, PII credit card information? I wouldn't use honeypots, but what we do, and even in the real database, you put custom records in there, or fake records, so you can figure out if that was actually your data file that was stolen. Right. So in a honeypot, we would have specific records that we would create. Right. So if that honeypot took that information and was selling it on the dark web, we can look up and say, okay, that was PBO-128. That doesn't exist in real life. So that's in there. We know that came from our database. So we probably have, depending on how big the database is, we could have 25 or 30 of those records. So we can look in there and find those, and we know that act specifically got attacked from us, Levi. So a lot of people call those markers. Like I said, I've never used the honeypot. I'm anti-honeypot, Levi. So shout out to my man Jupiter. We were kind of going over that. The reason why for me is, I don't know if you were here previously, is if you do a honeypot or a honeynet, and for some reason the hacker got in there and they got loose and started pivoting east and west because you didn't quite lock it down, you could be considered negligent because you let a bad guy inside your network, Cyber Levi. So that's me. I'm old. I'm a curmudgeon. So I don't like to take those risks. As an old cyber guy, I don't invite people. So, but too, I think my man Jupiter had a good opinion. It does, and he wants to know his threats. I was joking, even said I MITRE knows all the threats. But for me, Cyber Levi, so that's not. And two is shout out to OWASP. That's kind of what they do, and MITRE as part of what they're helping with the community. And really, they built their whole infrastructure on that, right? OWASP talks about it more from a web app attack part. MITRE talks about it more for an infrastructure part. So for me, that's kind of why I wouldn't do that. But I think my man Jupiter has some good points. Like I'm just an old curmudgeon. I don't take that extra risk for me. So let's keep rolling. Patch management. We know with Patch Tuesday, what's your patch management process and how's that integrated into your secure configuration management? How do you test those? How is that defined in patch and integrated into your approval or baseline? So I have your baseline. If you need to patch something, how do you know that new patch information gets put into your approved baseline, right? So how do you get to work, and what's that your process? A lot of times what we did, if we patch something, we would put it in development for a couple weeks, let that shake out, make sure it didn't break any other apps. Then we would take that particular configuration management, a new CIs check or STIGs, and we would put that in our approved baseline. Right. Then two is we're versioning that in case we need to roll back to a previous patch. Same way that Patch Tuesday is working, right? Then two, how do you monitor? Describe how monitor activities relate to reports or applied to secure state systems. How do you identify when the actual configuration becomes different in some way from the approved baseline? So I used to do this at state. A lot of times if an emergency release came out or something happens and the DBA was picking, needed to fix something on the fly because the whole system was down, we can do that. Number one, though, that shows we're missing something in testing or we don't have something in place. But in reality, sometimes you got to go in there and jam stuff. You got something, it's a quick thing. But once the DBA or programmer gets that in there, they just need to go backwards and say, okay, this is what I did in production. This is a new patch. Let's still go testing if it's in production. Make sure it didn't break anything else, right? Then we can sync those two up. But how do you figure out if somebody did that? How do you know the deviation of that? And we're going to talk about AWS config and inspector. Going to run a short 1 minute video talking about how that tool is used so you can figure out that standard deviation. So media library procedures describe management of the media library, including naming convention of media, labeling process, name, version, date, created, retention, owner, checksum to make sure that's the actual inventory checks, capacity planning, arrival of the media. So what does that look like? So what does that mean if you needed a new database? What's the capacity? How big is it? Do you have funding for it, right? I've seen people say we need this bigger database, but they didn't check to see if we can afford it, right? right? So two, that's where your CCB is, your control board comes in, because they're going to talk about funding, money, when can it happen, the capacity planning of that, right? That usually happens behind the scenes and gets rolled up because management has to pay for that, right? At a certain level. So configuration change control, identify steps to move configuration change from initial request to eventual release into an operational environment. Procedures include but not limiting. I just put that in big. Change requests and how you get those approved into production, right? A lot of times management needs to check that out. Let's see. I think we just talked about it. Right? Gotcha. My man, thanks for joining us. ProfessorSecurity, do we provide baseline to comply with configuration management as part of NIST? As a security professional, do we provide baselines to comply with the configuration management as part of NIST? That's a good question. I'm gonna say yes and no. In real world, it's usually the CTO and the architecture usually comes up with the configuration management piece because they're keeping track of that. Usually from compliance and security, I usually validate what they're doing, to be honest. Then the other part of that is kind of what we're talking about here is when they do their baseline, how can I make sure that it's validated as the baseline? I'm gonna run Nexus on it to see if it's CIS compliant. Your favorite one to make sure it's ISO compliant. I do IRS pub, so I'm gonna scan those to make sure those are compliant. So usually the CTO and the architect really does the baseline, right? Because the baseline really is the components of their system or their SaaS or whatever they're connected to, right? So a lot of times security is not going to say, "Oh," so a lot of times I don't. Like I said, they know what they're putting in their software. My job is to come and say, okay, we scan it. It doesn't meet these controls, or we need to harden this database this way, or this SaaS this way, or this Lambda this way, right? Or you need to start using KMS, right? Because we need to have control the keys to meet this certain requirement. So in real life, that's usually how I see it. Let's see what my man said. BB sometimes don't come back. All facts. It's overlooked, especially in the cloud, till you get that big ass bill. Shut up, native. So working with bigger companies, they're usually on top of that. And guys know now because they got their hands slapped. Like, okay, if I need S capacity, right? So as part of their bringing on a new service or a new capacity, right, or a new thing, they have to estimate what's going to be the capacity, how many, how many records they think they're going to, if you're coming from how many events, because sometimes you get charged by the network traffic, right? So you got to come up with that now in the cloud, especially if you're on-prem. In the old days, you came up with capacity. Now you got to talk about traffic going in and out, right? Because you get charged for capacity in that. So depending on if it's an S3 bucket, if you can go to Glacier, which is cheaper, right, than S3, because it takes you, 4 hours to get it back. But yeah, they need to talk about those capacity and the in and out traffic, because you get charged for that in the cloud, right? So what's up? Good night, guys. I appreciate it. Check me out on the replay. Thanks for all good. Prophet, you still in YT? Yeah, I don't know. Shout out to my man before the Billions. He got clipped before I got clipped. No, casual's more me now. I think I gotta wait 3 months, but then I gotta get my 4,000 hours back, to be honest. So I'm just kind of waiting on that. So probably what I decided to do is around 2025, just go back and get my 4,000 hours, to be honest. Casual economy, and I just gone back and get monetized. I don't know, my man before the Billions had something go viral, so he got back on there ASAP. He had that one video. I think he got about 57,000 hits in a couple days, and he got most of his hours off that one video. Shout out to R Square. We were talking about AWS on LinkedIn. So we're going to touch a little bit on that. Glad you can join us. Once again, so in your configuration change control identifies the steps, configuration change, initial request, and eventual release into production. So a lot of times too, especially on bigger companies, is These are the things the business is requesting. Developers just don't magically come up with shit, right? This is a requirement for the business. So the business says, this is what we want. Old days, you do a ROM, which is a rough order of magnitude, what that's going to cost you in AWS. And then part of that, like my man said, is this is going to be the capacity. This is how much I think from an in and out traffic is going to cost us. Then you come for a rough order of magnitude of hours, price, capacity, size. So because you want to put a price on that. 2 prices, how much it's going to cost and how much we think we're going to make. That make could be actual dollars or actually savings, or why are we creating this new service, right, as part of that. Oh, facts. I just did a video on that to recreate. I did 30, 37, and I forgot the other one. So yeah, I just did the 3 videos on the trifecta of that. So yeah, that RMF. The real thing is I haven't really done a lot of RMF, which is 37. Now I do a lot of 800-53 because that's more implementation. And I think me and Chris was chopping it up about that. Is I only see very mature companies really doing RMF to be talking about the rest. Usually it's like, we got this product, we think it's going to make money, or we got this thing we want to implement. So I think a lot of people don't really think of the risk, right? It's just a service or something they want to add, to be honest with you. I don't really see that unless they're a mature company. How doing? HT been doing okay. HTP stuff. Shout out to, I haven't seen you in a while. Expo 317, my state. We're gonna need to go to lunch soon, and let's go try to get my NIST stuff in. Shout out to my man Axel for joining us. Let's get back to it. I think we wrapping up. Let's see. Where did I? Okay. Did I close? No, there it is. I had too many windows up. Criteria for determining whether a change is significant enough to consider consider a system reauthorization activity. Right. So in the traditional things is an ATO is an authority to operate. So if your system is doing something big enough or something complex enough, theoretically, you need to go to a reauthorization or a new ATO because they need to give you authority because that change was so big. Most people, once they get one, they just start slipping them in. But if you work for a DOD and they're super tight, they're like, this is a big change. We need to send you back to the ATO to see if your system still meet those requirements. But at the top, what would review of consistency for the enterprise architecture, a group that approves it. We talked about the configuration board, CCB, testing of those changes, approval of the system, requirements for testing those changes, requirements for accessing restriction for those changes, requirements if you have to roll back, requirements for management of unscheduled changes that are tailored, requirements for retroactive analysis, testing, and approval. Sometimes, if you get a security flaw or a security vulnerability or host somebody, you might need to make a emergency security patch, right? Microsoft does it all the time. So how would you handle if you had to do a security patch that's not on your standard 6 weeks or a quarter, or when you do your normal patching, right? So what would that look like? All right, that'll be probably a separate branch. You get it patched. How do you work that branch in and get it back into your standard baseline? So can you handle those type of changes? So basically that's what they're saying right there. Then at the top, this is the diagram. These are your individuals, CIs at the top, documents, laptops, servers, databases, information systems. Then we talked about that. System configurations are system components and non-components objects decomposed into a groups to be configuration managed. So these components of those makes that release that just went out, right? So these are your desktop OSs, your running OSs, your system security documentation. All of that is your configuration items for this release of your product, right? Because you're going to group it all together as what we looked at, right? This is your configuration baseline, right? So if this was your first one, this would be V1. This is all the things that makes up your systems, and each one of those things in there is a configuration item, right? So that's kind of what they're trying to show you at that. So while we're looking at that, let's look. Move my big head out the way. So this is the first thing I did when I got hired at TOD, right? I will be building these things, creating databases, creating OS, creating Apaches and Tomcat configuration files. So at the bottom, I would say this is everything we had in this release that we rolled out. So if there's some security issue, you should be able to go into your configuration baseline and say this was the setting on our system when we rolled out this baseline. Right. So our next release could be this, and we add stuff on, or that database, we upgraded it 2 versions. We went from Oracle 7 to Oracle 9, right? So that's how you keep track of your baselines. Because if you get hacked, they're going to go on your configuration baseline and say, okay, what versions were you using and what version got you hacked, right? As when they do their incident response. So you need to make sure you can show them these are the versions we use. And that's what happened to Kaseya's. When people start digging in their baseline, they had programs in there, but they didn't know what was in those programs, right? So now, even though you have, they call it configuration inventory. So in your configuration inventory, you might have another package that you bought, but inside that package, they have a baseline of stuff they built to run that package. So what's in there, right? So a lot of people are getting surprised. Oh, Kaseya's not going, oh, shit. We had a software package that was using that, right? They got us hacked. So that's why they want you to be able to show your baseline. And really, inside your baseline of your package, do you know what's in those programs you bought? And a lot of times it's no. So let's see. Move my head back over there. Yep, manifest. I appreciate. I was struggling to think of manifest sometime, but yeah, in that manifest, you got to know what's in there. And the harder part is been native, and a lot of people know. Half the time you calling SaaS products, so you calling the SaaS in another cloud. You don't know what's in there. You just know I send this over there and I get this response. But what's in there? So I think that's the issue coming up that's making it a little tougher. Oh, shoot. So this is established configuration. That's what develop and deploy system configuration established. Setting secure values, parameters that describe how particular automated function or IT behaves. And you see this, we were talking about this OS and applications, enabling and disabling depending on specific settings. Service, automatic updates and ports, DNS over 53. Network protocols, net BIOS, IPv6. Methods for remote access, SSL, which we wouldn't use, VPN, SSH, IPsec. So all of those, once again, are in your security baseline. And what are those settings in your baseline? You got Oracle, but what's your settings to harden Oracle? SQL Server, but what's your settings to harden SQL Server? Right there, you see auditing settings, capturing events, failure, logins, permission changes. And my favorite one, FIPS 140-3. Validated cryptographic protocols and algorithms to protect your data in transit and in storage. So once again, that's NIST approved vendors that their cryptography AES 256, 1024, 248 has it been approved by the government, meaning it looked at how they were doing those ciphers and they were done properly, right? AES 16 rounds, right? Are they doing that properly? A lot of people just say, oh, they're doing it, they must be good. Once again, picking off of that, implement secure configuration, system impact level, risk assessment, vulnerability scanning, and degrees of penetration, right? So how do you validate and prioritize your configuration? And how do you test your configuration, aka penetration testing, resolve issues, document deviations, record and improve the baseline, and deploy the baseline, right? So how do you prioritize those configurations? And how do you test them? Once again, implementing configuration change process. This is where you a lot of times have ticketing systems, ServiceNow, Spiceworks. There's a ton of ticketing systems. Fresh Service, there's a ton of them out there. But do you have a process to keep track of that? And are you using your ticket system properly? Right? Request change, record the request change, determine if the change requires configuration control, analyze the proposed change for security impact, test the proposed change and function, approve the change, steps usually approved by the CCB, implement the approved change. Once approved, authorized staff makes the change. Verified the change was implemented correctly, doing vulnerability scan, Rapid 7, Nexus. We're gonna look at AWS. Their tool, close out the change. When complete, the change is closed out in accordance with your organizational procedure, right? It's approved, it's checked, now it's in the control. So now when the auditors come in, if they say, well, who put this change in and how was it approved? You should have your ticket number in there, or have the ticket reporting to that change. Then inside that ticket, it shows you your change control board approving that particular change, right? So that's kind of how that goes when you work for a large company to make that happen. Facts, yeah, facts. And that's the thing. And I shout out to me and our square. We were talking about containers. That's something I really want to dig in this year, and I'll probably start doing some videos on that. That Docker and Kubernetes, like you said, those. How do you figure what's in those changes inside those containers? Right, they're doing networking and everything in there. Right, it's really its own sub VM. So like you said, how do you keep track of that? Now, yeah, that's something I'm kind of digging into and see what that looks like. Because to be honest, I'm struggling a little bit. Why is moving your IT security career hard to push forward? At least for me. Shout out to my man. He had a good video on that. Black Heights was talking about that. I think he changed his elevate to new heights. I think that's just not you, Ty. I think, like you said, especially in this job market, everybody's moving into tech. 100,000 people got laid off, so I think it's just saturated at this particular time. So I think right now it's hard for everybody. Right? When I was looking a couple years ago, I got 20 years of experience, man, and it was hard, man. I probably sent out 200 or 300 resumes. I probably got 25 interviews and a couple job offers. So I kind of know my numbers. If I send out 100 resumes, I probably get 5. And out of those 5, I probably get 2 job offers. And a lot of times, too, they were a little less than what I was trying to get, Ty. So you're not alone, man. Shout out to my man Before the Billions, man. He's got 5 years data engineering. He's out here putting in the grind, trying to make it happen. He's got some stuff lined up, but he's out in here, man. He did about 4 videos talking about that. So, Ty, you're not alone, my man. It's just hard out here, man. And 2 is, I think now, it was the other way around, right? Through COVID, the employee had the power. Everybody was overhiring. I think there was money flowing for the government. Now, people laying off so many people. I think the employers got the gun now, right? The rabbit had it, but now the hunter got it. So I think it just switched on that type. But I keep grinding. You know, you putting in great work, and I know it's gonna pay off, man. But you know, that's easy for people to say. You know, and sometimes a good guy don't win, but you just got to keep grinding, man. Your time comes. Shout out to R Square. Let's see what she's talking about. Docker containers slam me left and right. Yeah, I need to get. I was into Docker, and I probably start digging into it. I'll probably do some videos. It seems like Kubernetes got hotter than Docker all of a sudden. I'm a Java guy, and all the Java guys use Docker, but it seems like everybody's doing Kubernetes. So that's interesting. See, my man JM definitely wanted day one. Is it safe to make a Git repository public so that picture? I don't know about that. I probably wouldn't make it public. Can you make it private and just give them access to it? I don't do a lot of Git stuff, to be honest. I do a lot of private stuff on AWS. I usually just build it and tear it down. So I usually never make any of my stuff public, to be honest. So I don't know. I think I got enough experience so I can usually just talk about it. But that I need to dig into that, JM. I'm gonna dig into that. I'm gonna dig into that. I would say yeah, because I see a lot of people doing it, but I need to do some. I need to know. Number one is a lot of people put secret keys in the Git repository that shouldn't be in there, right? Which is passwords into the database. I will drop that in the chat, GMR. Let me drop that in there. Give me 1 minute. I usually go live in the boat, but for some reason I didn't that day. Let me. Oh, let's see. Oh, facts. I'm on AWS not much. No, I agree with that. I think AWS and Azure and GCP because R Square was showing me she had the it's floating out there. It shows you each one of those cloud and when you say S3 bucket, what that is in Azure and GCP, and each one of them kind of had the same thing, right? And so it didn't seem to be much different in them. So no, I agree with you on that. The only difference is a lot of time. I think AWS has a slight lead. So a lot, and we talked about this on your channel before the billions. People are asking for super specific technologies, right? Even if you had GCP, they discount it for your AWS skills, right? So I think people were kind of, wanting you to have that specific skills. Shimar, just look up. Let me look it up real quick. Jimar, I put it in the chat at the bottom. Let's keep going. Okay, I talked about that. I was wondering if a hacker could move laterally potential in my network once they have access. That's a good question. I need to dig into that more because I did see some stuff, but I think they move laterally because people had their secret keys in there. So their secret keys got them into their AWS production or their on-prem production. But once again, I need to dig into that. Let's see what my man. Okay. So they want you to sign up for a particular project inside of. Okay. So you don't think they respect if you build your own project, Big Native, or they want you to sign up for one of the bigger projects and contribute to it? Probably do both, but you think it's better if you contribute to a bigger project? See, I chucked it there. Let's keep going. We got a few more slides. This one could conduct a security impact analysis. We talked about it. What's the initial phase before change is deployed? Talk about getting approval from your CCB. Development, acquisition, implementation phase. Do your security impact analysis is not a one-time event conduct during your initiation. Initiation phase support. So every time you build something or put something in there, a lot of times you should have PMD or find bugs, static or dynamic, that's always going through your code. Because sometimes you might not change your code. You might be just updating the framework you use. And I'm a Spring guy. I do Java, right? Spring, using Oracle database, Hibernate, right? You could be updating Spring and Hibernate, and inside there, release a security issue. Right? So that's why you got to keep, once again, have ongoing impact assessment on that. Operation and maintenance phase. Security impact analysis, operation and maintenance phase to confirm that the original impact assessment was correct and that unexpected vulnerabilities or controlled or not identified. All right. So once again, when you could just be upgrading your framework, once again, with Spring and Hibernate, that could be introducing bugs and other vulnerabilities inside, and you didn't change any code in there, right? So that's one reason you got to keep it up. The process for security impact analysis: understand the change, identify the vulnerabilities, assess the risk, assess the impact and existing security control, plan, safeguard, and countermeasures. Right. So, what's your hardening? Once again, what's your mitigating control? What risk are you identifying? What risk you're accepting, and what risk are you trying to lessen? Once again, how are you monitoring? Scanning to discover components. We talked about Nexus, Lexus, and Rapid7, and we're going to talk about AWS Inspector. Scanning to identify disparities between the approved baseline and the actual configuration. How are you implementing automated change monitoring tools, querying auditing, running system integrity checks, review configuration and control to verify conformance with security policies and procedures. Right. I used to do that at DoD. How do you come up with those discrepancies between what's in your baseline and what's in production? Did somebody come and do an emergency fix and then put it back in your baseline? So you got to identify those. They call them disparities. I call them discrepancies. But how do you identify those and see what's happening with those? And once again, this AWS config right there. The config rules is, once again, is this S3 bucket encrypted? If somebody takes it out, do you send out an alert? I can actually fix it and make sure it's encrypted again. And two is I want to take a history of that to figure out who changed it and what's happening. And at the bottom, you see that security analysis, audit analysis, change management, problem analysis, and what's the inventory. Once again, is in your basic configuration and who changed it, what changed it, and once again, manifest. You create manifest with AWS config of what happened. Then through with your AWS config, it'll tell you if you're doing CIS checks or best of breed in AWS config, you can pick which type of compliance you want to do, and it tells you non-compliant in red. And so then two is you can figure out what stuff is getting fixed or what stuff's getting worse, right? Then you can start doing trending analysis. Then two right there that tells you have 0.8, your encrypted volume is not properly encrypted. You don't have multi-factor authentication with your root user, right? Logging, right? You're not logging the proper thing from your database. So it tells you how many violations you have. Then two is this will give you a report. What you talk about monitoring, this is part of your monitoring. You create a dashboard, you can send out alerts. Then this tells you, once again, monitoring what's happening, what's not, or if somebody's changing stuff and not going through the proper approval. Right, then here is Amazon Inspector. Shout out to Chris and my man, Mr. Finesse. We talked about the CIS benchmarks. You can say the CIS benchmarks, you want that happening on EC2. So what would that look like in production, right? And what's happening in those? We're going to look at a certain video, then I'm going to drop the link. Let me get to there. Where is that? Once again, put any links in the chat. Let me get that queued up. Get my big face out the screen. Let me get over there. Let's listen to this real quick, then we'll get going.
Security gaps created by software vulnerabilities and unintended network access can lead to compromised workloads and unauthorized access to data. Amazon Inspector is a vulnerability management service that is easy to enable across your entire organization with a few clicks in the AWS Management Console. Inspector's integration with AWS organizations simplifies multi-account management and centralizes findings for the security.
So this is something, shout out to R Squared. We're going to start doing videos talking about AWS. We're actually going to start walking through labs. We're going to stop talking about it, be about it. So we're going to start doing some real labs using AWS Inspector, using EC2, talk about network segmentation. Shout out to Dewan Lightfoot. We're going to try to lab every day, or at least lab once a week on YouTube. So let's get it going.
Once enabled, Inspector automatically discovers workloads such as Amazon EC2 instances and containers, and continually scans them for software vulnerabilities and unauthorized network exposure. Inspector correlates up-to-date CVE information with factors like network accessibility and exploitability, creating accurate and meaningful risk scores to help you prioritize your response to address vulnerabilities.
So we talked about that, right? AWS Inspector is going to give you the risk score like it's next. And two is we can have it spin that up every day. Then two is what I'm going to try to do is feed that into Power BI and make that dashboard for executives. Right. If you're the CEO, you don't really care about all the vulnerabilities. You just want to know an overall score. Are we looking thumbs up or are we in the red? What would red be? We had a couple Cat 1s. We might be in issue with the IRS because we got these Cat 1 we can't fix and it took us longer than 90 days to fix. Right. So the IRS doesn't like that. So that's something a CEO and now even the C-suite and the executive board. That's kind of stuff they want to know now. The executive board is really starting to get into security. So what things could we pull from Amazon Inspector, put those into a Power BI dashboard? Because there's only a few things C-suite want to look at. If we're not in compliance or something that could get us fined, right? If we don't get this fixed, we would consider negligent and we might be able to get fined. So those are some of the things they want to be aware of, right? Because it's going to cost some money at the executive level.
Resources. Inspector helps you reduce mean time to resolve vulnerabilities with automation through integration with partner solutions, Amazon EventBridge, and AWS Security Hub. Launch Inspector's free trial to discover your critical vulnerabilities.
I dropped the link down there if anybody wants to come up right there. Is that it? Yeah, I got so much going on. I dropped the link. So that's it. If anybody wants to come up, I'm gonna hang out a little longer. Just shout out to that. Yep, shout out to the Linux guys. Shout out to R Squared. Getting their AWS skills up. Shout out to my man. I mainly do web development. I focus on JavaScript, React library, facts. You might want to get your OWASP top 10 in there, JM. You got to get them OWASP in there from a security perspective. Shout out to my man. We want to shout out to B2B. He got remonetized. He's my role model. I need to get my remonetization back, but PBO kind of lazy. I think I'm going to get mine in 2025. Go ahead before the billions. Go ahead. I can't hear you, man. I don't know if it's me or you. I can't hear you.
It must be connected to here.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Let me switch from that to my my other microphone. There we go. So you should be able to hear me now.
I can.
Sounds good. So, yeah, PBO, how's everything been going, man?
It's cool. I was trying to take your lead. I went to an AWS event in person, so I was networking in my little city, man. It don't be looking like your city. I'm just gonna say it like that. I mean, but I went, so I might speak. They asked me to speak if I want to speak at one of the AWS events, so I gotta lose a little weight before I get my fat ass up on that screen, though. But I'll probably present. Go ahead.
You know what, PBO is interesting. I just applied to I applied to a few places to be a speaker. They told me no, man. But
well, really? I think too. That's your fault. I think you need to do more tech stuff on your channel. I think if you do more tech stuff, I think your market is a little more competitive than mine too. But I think if you do more tech stuff, but check me if I'm wrong. I just haven't seen you do as much tech stuff. You talk about the tech market, but I haven't seen you broke down data engineering or security at a certain fact. So I think when people go through my my YouTube channel that a lot of times I double stream on LinkedIn. So I think that, gives me a little more authority that they think I'm a subject matter, because I got like 400 videos of me talking about tech stuff. So I think you need to do a little more of that. B2B, chime in on that.
Yeah, man, I agree with you. But the only thing is when I did do it, when I first started my channel, it was literally only tech stuff.
Oh, I'm right
talking
there
like for like 10 hours. Remember we used to do like 10-hour long live streams.
I remember.
I used to work on my website.
You forgot the one. I read your channel. You fell asleep one day. I think you were doing a 24-hour one. I think I ran it for like 4 hours, but not
right. And and I started my channel starting off saying, okay, this is how you become a data engineer. And I'm gonna tell you, man, people did not watch it.
Oh,
and so that's why I kind of made the pivot.
No, I do this, so I'm right there with you, man. I think, but I think that's the give and take of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna suffer a little bit, but when you when you go to speak and do side stuff, I think that's where that channel part of help. So I don't know if you want to do more, maybe start a different channel, because I think Keep It Techy, I would say start a new channel and kind of split them up.
I do have a second channel. It's called Build Your Billions.
That's true. I do remember that. Because Tech G did that. He got his Tech G, then he got his effort channel. Yeah, his effort channel where he just talk about crazy stuff, right? So
right. I think that would that's the difference, right? Is that before the billions is more like the job market and stuff like that, things that are affecting people and stuff like people's pain points.
Oh, facts,
when
facts.
it's dealing with it. But then Build Your Billions is me. I interviewed you on. Or actually, I think I put the interview on that channel. Yeah,
Okay,
it was
okay.
back when it was called Black Man in Tech.
Yeah, facts, facts, facts.
Yeah, so I have an interview with you. I have an interview with a whole bunch of people on there, and there are people in technology, senior VPs, senior
Yeah,
managers.
I'm gonna interrupt you real because that really hurt my feelings because you did that Microsoft segment. I thought that was excellent. You got very few views on that, so that I was like, man, that was an excellent series, and you had powerhouse people on there. So
Yeah.
I was a little down on it because I'm thinking, well, shit, I don't think I can outdo that. But go ahead, P2P. So I definitely remember that, man.
Yeah, man. But I'm gonna start putting more stuff up there for it. I just remember I remember asking somebody to be like to come on to the platform, and then they asked me how many subscribers do you have, and then I said, oh, I have like 300 on my Build Your Billions channel. Oh, that's cute, and then they just walked off. So I was like, okay, maybe I need to grow more to kind of get more of a
That suck, man. That's
social.
elitism, man. Shout out to Keep It Techie, man. Keep It Techie brought me on his channel when I had 300, and after I left his, I had like 700, man. So shout out to Keep It Techie, man. I think people need to help people because a lot of people know there's a lot of people that if I see their smile, I'm gonna share their stuff to try to help them grow. I only got 3,000. It's not like I'm super big, but if somebody smile, I at least try to share them. If they got good time. Like a Wire Dog was out. I loved his stuff, so I just shared his stuff out, try to help him get to 1,000. So when people do that, I don't know. That's kind of elitism to me. But go ahead, go. That's me.
But it's all right. But yeah, I know you're talking about a completely different topic. I just,
Yeah. Let me switch.
Can I tell you a little bit about the interview I had? It's not
Yeah.
like
No, that's cool. That's cool.
because the interview was for a data engineer position.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing is I remember something that you told me,
Okay.
and this is the reason I wanted to bring it up to you, is that sometimes you'll run into an interview for a technical role, and it will be so what do you say? Almost like adversarial.
Yeah.
That makes it.
No, I've had a few of those. Go ahead. Yep.
Right, like I'm trying to make sure you do not get past this point. That's essentially what it was.
Yeah. I've been there before.
So essentially, it was like you know how people will tell you, "Oh yeah, go ahead and do the STAR method."
Oh
And you have the situation, task, the action, and then the result that you took, and the result that happened. So then they asked me a question. Oh, tell me about a time when you used Microsoft SQL Server. I said, okay, yeah, I used it every single day. This is one of the projects I worked on it with, and as I'm explaining, I say, oh yeah, I use this tool in order to accomplish that. And then it's, oh, wait a second, before you move on, so you kept cutting me off as I'm explaining. Go deeper into what you just said. I was like, okay, I can explain that. Even further than that, you didn't run into any performance issues. No, everything was fine. Or you do know the difference between this and this, right? He asked a question about like array aggregations or or the row number.
Okay.
And then I was like, well, those are two different things, right? Though essentially he was saying which one is better. And like I guess it's based off the scenario, because an array aggregation is like creating an object of a list, and then a what do you call it? A row number is like ranking or sorting something,
Right.
or to deduplicate a database, and you can use that with cloud tools, and then also it's within on-premise databases as well, like a Microsoft SQL Server or an Oracle database, or Oracle SQL Server.
Yeah, I've done Oracle, but
yeah. So it's like the question was kind of like, okay, it's kind of set up for you to fail, because it's like, okay, which one is better? It depends on the situation, and then if you look it up, it's like, oh, one has better performance than the other. So it's kind of like, that's like something you had to look up on a Medium article or something like that to like know the difference between performance or which one's more optimal than the other one. So you know, and then it got to the point where he was asking me specific lines of code, like what was the actual calculations that you did for this. I was like, okay, I can't go that, you know, deep into the business logic.
Yeah, he didn't like you, but go ahead, he didn't like you.
Right. So that's exactly what it was. It got even, and this was like the first question. I can't even finish the first question without him going, "Oh, what was the calculations for this?"
Yeah, I met a couple guys like that. It's like, dude, and two, like, yeah. Well, you talking about top of the pyramid type stuff, man. Like you said, but like we talked about, I think people are looking for just a certain skill set, a certain level, and you're not gonna you're not gonna find anybody at that level. That's a crazy level. That's top 1% type calculations they're talking about. So.
Right. So, but essentially, I don't think it went well though, because this is like my second time with the company. They didn't turn on their cameras for the interview.
That's normal. Me and my attorney talks about that. That drives her crazy when people don't turn their camera. To be honest, I just thought that was your generation, man. They just don't cut on.
They older than me. They older than me, man.
Yeah, I think that's weird, man. I've had that a couple times where people don't. I'm just whatever to it. I don't. Did it bother you? As to me, it's like whatever.
It did kind of bother me though, because I think what happens is in an interview, like if you don't see the person's facial expression, they can be a little bit more rude to you. So they can kind of go even further, like cut you off and stuff like that. I had my camera on and I dressed up for the interview and stuff like that, regardless of it being virtual. And then that's just one of the bad things about virtual interviews. And then at the end, they didn't even stop to say, okay, do you have any questions? They literally asked all these questions. That's all my questions I have. You have a good day. And then I was like, wait a second now. At least let me ask questions at the end.
Nah, baby. I'm old. It's weird. I kind of like to tell me how you really feel, man. Don't sugarcoat. If you don't like me, that's cool. I know it now. I'm not gonna get my hopes up. You showed me, as Ilya Benzan said, you showed me who you are, man. I'm cool with that. But I'm old and curmudgeon, man. Don't smile in my face, man. If you don't like me, I can tell by your tone, because you have people smile and not call me, man. You knew right when you left. You're like, yeah, that's me getting this shit. Smile, man. So I'm weird, man. I'm old. Like, if you don't like me, I don't smile in my face. Don't cut your camera on. Like you said. And two is,
right.
I like I said, I like those. I start stretching. Okay, I take that as personal, man. They were personally attacking you. Like, why are you asking me these super minute details? If I'm on a project, half the time I'm gonna look that shit up, man. Before we talking about that. So that lets me know, okay, you picking on me. Okay, let's go now. Okay, we're gonna have to. Go ahead.
I kind of almost felt like that because
they was
because I felt like I almost wanted to like give you the result that you were looking for, which is okay. Wait, why are you asking me such an irrelevant question to the role that we were talking about now? What is the business logic and the calculations of one project that I worked on have to deal with your specific business use case in a different industry? So it was like something is like related to technology, related to like the tool. But if I asked you to list all the keywords differences between Microsoft, this was one of the questions. Asked me to list out all the keyword differences between Microsoft SQL Server and Google Cloud BigQuery. And then I list out like, oh yeah, I know that you can use you can export differently using this SSIS or in this within Microsoft SQL Server, but in the BigQuery UI you can use this. No, I want specifically if you're using a procedure within Microsoft SQL Server and a stored procedure within BigQuery, tell me all the keyword differences that you can't use in one versus the other. And then I was like, that's something that you can just look up.
Yeah, shots to struggle security. That's what he talks about. But to me, and you're 100% right, is either he's a jackass or I've seen this a lot of times. Super brilliant guys are assholes like that, and they know it, and they expect you to know it. I had a boss. We became cool, but the thing he did was really helping me. he wants you to. We couldn't use a GUI. Shout out to Keep It Tech. You had to do Linux from the command line in the interview, which I think is crazy, man. I just happened to do it. And I told him, I was like, fine, you an asshole. He goes, but if we're on site and we have to work and we don't have a GUI, you got to be able to do that shit, man. I'm like, dude, I can at least Google it on my phone. But
yeah,
but some people are like that, man.
and that's exactly it. I talked to my career coach about it. He was like, "This is my second process, interview process with this company." So he was like, it kind of just shows like the culture of it.
Yep.
Because like they literally they didn't even let me ask questions. They just dropped off the call. I was like, wait a second now.
For me, it sounds like they got somebody in mind.
Yeah, that's what I think so too.
And a lot of times, especially in certain companies, federal things, they have to interview people from the outside. So I think for that, they want to beat you up to make their internal candidate to really look good. And they probably ain't gonna ask them half the questions they asked you. And I've seen that in person before. So
right, like we weren't gonna hire you anyway. It was like a waste of time, essentially.
No, not for them. Because they got to show that they interview quality candidates from the outside. Then they're gonna say you couldn't answer the questions, but they ask the insert person the same question they asked you. Right. That's that game. So
yeah, that's exactly it. So another thing I ran into that I thought was interesting is I'm supposed to be interviewing with another company, and then the recruiter for the company I interviewed for yesterday asked me, "Oh, what's the hiring manager that they're hiring for the other company?" And then I was like, "Why would I tell you the hiring manager's name for another role at another company?" Oh, because we use them too. And so we have contracts with them as well. I want to see if they have any jobs available. And I was like, wait a second, are you trying to steal their
Oh yeah. But like I told you before, man, get out your feelings. They don't care about you, man. You just a resource, man.
Yeah, so
but two is though, you can play that both ways. If I give you something, you got to give me something on the back end, man.
Mm-hmm.
If I give you a hiring manager, you got to give me a couple more interviews. You got to push me through the front. If I give you something, you got to give me something, right? So
yeah.
But people don't care. Go ahead, go. People don't care. Hold on real quick, B2B.
Mm-hmm.
That's what Larry said, the same thing I was saying. Seems like they were trying to find a way to eliminate you or rule you out, then actually hire you. Shaking my head, right? So
right.
So that's the game, which sucks. So like I said, I wouldn't take it personally, man. That's the game.
Yeah, man. I was thinking the same thing, but I didn't want to derail the whole stream. I just wanted to kind of bring that up.
No, that's perfect, man.
Yeah, because I remember we were talking about doing a live interview, a mock interview as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, man, I gotta go ahead and study and all this other kind of stuff for PBO, man.
I ain't gonna beat you up like that, man. So yeah, it's weird because I actually interview people, but I ask, I think, more sensible questions. Like you were saying, okay, what's the kind of the difference between that and that? And I too is I like to know what have you done, because like you said, if you could do it in Google, you could do it in Amazon, right? It's just different services, but they move the same way. I just want to see your thought pattern. And if you've done something similar, I always could say, well, they could do it on a different cloud. They just need to look it up, looking at it. Unless you're doing something crazy like moving 1 trillion records in an hour, most of that stuff's gonna scale and work at that same capacity. So, like you said, I think people be getting a little crazy. Let's see what Jim R. said. So I like asking questions about issues. If I identified in our ops, architecture, etc., nice if they could have a good answer. But I'm interested in see how they think, like we said, with little info. It sounds like you were answering the questions. I don't know. It seems like he wanted you to, I guess, delve down a little deeper.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was like, it's kind of got caught up in the minutia of things. Like, like what line of code did you say with this? And I remember it was something along the lines of, you've used. Like I answered the question right, and then he asked me, "Oh, well, what if you didn't have that? Then what else would you do?" It was something about partitioning.
Okay.
And then I was like, "Okay, yeah, we mostly partition on timestamps." and it's based off the day. Well, what if you didn't? And then it's like, okay, that's the correct answer. But then he's like, well, what if you didn't have that? So it's like pulling from something I have not used before to do I know the definition of partitioning? And then I was like, well, I guess you could base it off of like the business unit or the age or the location or something like that. And then he was like, no, that's not right. It's something like that. He said. He told me I was wrong. I was like, wait a second now.
he just, but like I said, it's crazy. But to be honest, that's stuff you want to know. He seems kind of toxic, to be honest. Like, you're gonna be a toxic work environment, man. And I've been there before, man, and it just took a couple years off my life, man. So sometimes it's better to figure it out up front.
Yeah, it's true. But yeah, PBO, there was a comment I made earlier talking about GCP and AWS. I said I was learning a little bit more about AWS, and specifically, like how you have it there, the EC2 instances, and for Google Cloud, they have the Google Cloud Storage, and they have pretty much the same type of options. A lot of the time, it works pretty much the same way. What is it, like Redshift is like their data warehouse for AWS, and BigQuery is for GCP. You run SQL queries on there. It still does analytics. So it does pretty much the same things. It's based off, I think, the same technology. The Apache, I think Apache. I think it's either Beam or whatever the Apache data warehouse is.
Yeah, I can't think of it. But I know which one you're talking about.
Right. So
I used to use Oracle, but like you said, they got stuff a little more warehouse designed for a warehouse.
But yeah, so you have it's based off the same stuff. It should transfer over, and I just know the AWS has a lot more jobs that people are looking for.
Oh, facts. That's why the reason I picked it up. I would do AWS or Azure. Really, people going multi-cloud, and when I was working at the state, they were actually. So I would just pick AWS or Azure, and pick up the other two later.
Yeah, because I essentially I keep seeing jobs for AWS, but the jobs who actually interview me are using GCP. But that's the jobs I've had previously. They use GCP.
That's why.
But it's just because it's a market here in Atlanta is that GCP still is being used. We have a Google office here, but we also have a Microsoft office. So Azure and Google tend to show up more over here, but AWS, I think, overall has more of the market share.
Yeah, I think it was 37-25, and the rest was split, if I remember right. Well, let me read this from Larry. I've always heard people say apply everywhere. Don't be afraid to cast a broad net. Some jobs are going to be a no-go right off the jump because of the situation. Yeah, that's true. I mean, that's it. Two is interviewing is only going to help you even if you don't get it. So, like I said, it sounded like you was getting your star on. So,
yeah, I was trying to, man. He kept cutting me off, man.
Hey, that's all good. That's all good. I've been there too, man.
Yeah, man. Yes, it was. It was his second.
Oh, you said that? Yeah. I see that lie. I'm gonna leave that one alone. But go ahead.
All right. But yeah, PBO. So,
PBO, you want to switch the camera to see all your comments? Oh, I guess I could. Do I do the overlay? Probably. I never do the overlay. Yeah. I don't know why I don't do that. I see you do overlay. I never do the overlay.
Oh, with the comments?
Yeah. So I'm overlaying now.
Yeah, PBO. I have and actually something that you just said earlier was about asking for help. That's gonna be my next. That's gonna be my next video. I just filmed it.
Okay.
Thumbnails gonna look crazy now. I will tell you that.
They looking good. I need to upgrade mine, man. I'm looking like I'm in the 3rd grade, man. I got to get up there with you and Anti Daniels, man. Y'all with them headshots and what they get. So I got to do a little better. I'll be a little bit too tired.
But yeah, essentially, it's talking about. I had heard a quote, and it said to make the friends before you need them, because
Oh, facts.
especially in this job market right now, you don't want to be without a network. Because if you don't have people who are in the industry. I remember I so when I got laid off from my job, like my family was not the people to go to
No,
for
facts.
for a job. They'd be like, "Oh, do you want to help clean up my house for $15 an hour?" Or like, "Do you want to help me with this for a little extra money?" And
Yeah,
you sit here like, "Man, I'm gonna lose my house dealing with you."
yeah, but you got to
Um,
know they ain't on your level, man. So I don't think people comprehend what the tech game's really about and what the pay's really about a lot of times, man. So
right.
you
So,
know,
but that's why I say like you have to kind of go out there and meet people in the industry. You have to meet people who are where you want to be.
oh, fact. But I guess my only a small issue with that is
Mhm.
CareTech had a big network, man. He had 40,000 people on LinkedIn, and
Mhm.
he took about as long as you took to find a job. So I always struggle to figure out. I need to, I guess, network with not say better people, but people in a high level and people, aka like struggle security in a hiring position spot, right? So
Mhm.
all networking ain't the same, I guess, and I need to work on that too, to be honest. BP.
Yeah, and I think in Kevtech, he did get a job.
He
I think
did,
he
he
got a better
did,
job.
he did, but it took him a minute. I just
Yeah.
assumed with 45,000, you put out there open to work, and I just thought it would be a little easier for him, I guess.
Hmm.
So
Yeah, I mean, but I will tell you, TPO, there were some people who I know they've been without a job for over a year.
facts, 100%.
They've been out of job for. This one guy commented he been out of a job for 3 years.
I've
I was
seen
like,
it.
at that point, it's kind of like, you really need to work on your network, because that's really the only way you gonna get a job with a 3 year time gap.
But the problem is, and I think you said it is, you need to work on that before you need it,
Yeah.
right? If you're trying to work on it when you need, it's too late, man. It's way too late.
Hmm. Yeah. Matter of fact, my dad used to always say this. He would say, "Your car is your livelihood," and it's always easy to look for a new car before before you need it. So like if your engine blows out or something like that, you don't want to be stressed trying to look for a new car to get one. You want to already kind of have one, kind of look around, see what the
Mhm.
prices are and everything. You can make a better decision, without all that stress.
No, that's 100%, man. So, but two is, and we talked about that is my network is building up, and I get a lot of because I simultaneously stream on LinkedIn. I
Hmm.
get a lot of recruiters pinging me.
Hmm.
Now, a lot of times they're asking me for Java jobs. I'm like, dude, I ain't done Java in 15 years. You ain't looking at my resume. But I think I get a lot of hits and activities from recruiters from me going live on
Multi-streaming,
LinkedIn. Yeah. I think that helps me out a little bit in that too.
right?
Maybe do you multi-stream or just one stream? You stream on one?
I just stream only on
YouTube?
YouTube. I I mean, other than like going to my Discord.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I do that's like a stream outside of YouTube. Um, I mean, I should do that, but my audience is so different on all those platforms.
Yeah, I agree with that. So which I didn't do today. When I do NIST or compliance stuff, I stream that to LinkedIn. If I do
Mhm.
anything else, um, cloud wise, even I don't stream that on LinkedIn. I think for me, compliance is kind of like my bailiwick, and that's kind of my bread and butter. So, like you said,
Mhm.
so I'm trying to figure out when to simultaneously, or if I need to do, which I need to do, what should I do special for LinkedIn? What does that audience look for from me that's different? So I'm trying to figure that out, to be honest, in a nutshell. So
Right. I mean, because I honestly I was actually scared to even post any that I even did YouTube on LinkedIn. Not because I'm going up and talking about like politics or going up cursing or anything like that. I think my channel is pretty PC,
It
talking
is.
about tech, and you know, I try to be as valuable and informative as I can. But you know, I was nervous about it, man, because people will judge you
Oh,
based
they
off
do.
it.
Yeah, I just came to a point. But two is, you know, I'm almost out the game. You just starting, so I don't think I could really hurt myself very much.
Mhm.
You know, now I'm kind of people know me, right? So, but I can see top, especially where people be doxing each other, even in the tech space. I think it's crazy. But now
Oh yeah.
I can definitely because you just getting in the game. Hell, I've been in the game older than how old are you? I've been in the game for 35 years.
I'm 28 years old.
Yeah, I've been in shit. I've been in security for 20, so
Right.
so you know I'll be 57 this year. So shit, I'm up there, man. I'm probably old as your dad and shit. I'll be
Yeah,
57.
you guys
So
are the
yeah,
same age.
yeah. So you know, I got my first tech job. I think I said this was 88 was my first summer internship at the state of Indiana. I think it was 88, 19. Yeah, because I graduated 19. Yeah, 2 years. Not probably 1988 was my first internship doing IBM mainframe. Thanks, God. They calling me youngin. I'm like, oh, yeah.
Right.
I don't know if that's to you or me. That's probably to you. I don't know. He said young guy. But yeah. But yeah, I can definitely see it. You should be very careful because it's easy to get blackballed in this industry, especially when you start doing senior level stuff and something like Oracle. There's not a lot of people doing Oracle. So
But yeah, and I don't know if you wanted to go through some of the comments, but I was sitting here thinking, man, I think that it's been rewarding to like build a network. Not only for because I'm noticing there's a lot of people also going through the same struggle. Like
fact.
people getting laid off, people get put on a PIP, people going through bad interviews and not getting jobs, not getting promoted or whatever it is. And so they're going through the same issue. So it's at least good to like feel like you have a community of people.
Yeah.
But then sometimes I keep getting people telling me like, man, you keep going to all these events with and it's not leading you anywhere.
That's not true.
So it just depends whoever you talk to. So it's kind of like actually since I started networking, I've been able to gain. I went from 2,000 followers on LinkedIn to 4,200.
Yeah.
And it's helped. I mean, people have reached out to me. I don't know if it's directly because I've been making YouTube videos more often or networking, going to events, and putting more content out there on LinkedIn. But it may be helping.
No, it's not gonna hurt. And two is I think, and that's kind of what I said before is you build up your connection. People see you putting in work, so they trust you. People believe that they gonna know you from your YouTube channels, right? So then people start reaching out to you. Like you said, if you meet them today, they might not help you today. They want to see you. They want to see content. People want to become attached to you, kind of believe they get to know you. And all that takes time, right? Shout out to the mainframe people out there.
Oh man, mainframes.
That's how I did a YouTube video of my first internship. I used to put the tape on the JCL for IBM mainframe. So in the old days, there was not enough disk space. So JCL would say, put these 4 tapes on. I'm going to write them to temporary disk. You do your data into your sorting. Then once you get done, it'll write to the tape. And I got to take them out because there's not enough room on those big mainframes. So that's kind of what it looked like a refrigerator. So I did a video. One guy asked me, was that a refrigerator when I showed them the JCL tape unit that I used to have to put tapes on that gets to write them on. Shout out to Game Over. But now you doing it right. It takes you a minute to build up your network. And two is like you said, there's a lot of people been laid off for a year or more. And once again, shout out to Black Heights. He was talking about that with just people getting laid off. You see his video on that? So I
did. And you know what, PB, I was taking my time not to say nothing about. It was one point that he said about, and actually it was an article that came out too, the article was titled "Gen Z is losing their love affair with tech roles now."
Facts. What's your
And
thoughts on that?
yeah, I mean, and also what Black Kite said, he was talking about how the days of people getting 6-figure jobs, starting off with no experience, and is over. So, and it kind of highlighted when people on TikTok and all these social media platforms would just say, "Oh yeah, you can get a tech job in 3 to 6 months and make 6 figures." One guy was talking about you can make $1 million within a year getting a tech job. I was like, this just isn't making sense.
Yeah.
So,
but that's the pendulum swinging, right? There was overhire, and there was money slow, and it's always because when I came out in 1990, it was a recession, man. My ex was mad. My first job, even though it was back then in 1990, I think I made $28,000. But back then a house maybe cost 90 though, right? So it wasn't too crazy, but it just took me a while to build up. $1 million is just while facts.
Yeah,
that's what they were selling. So
yeah.
I think I think the pendulum swings back and forth. It was an overhire, like Black Eye said. So now you got to correct for that. So a lot of people, I was talking to the AWS guy. I went to an indie AWS event. The AWS laid off like 20,000 people, man. I was like, that's crazy. But they overhired.
Yeah, I think that's what the issue is now. We're receiving the aftermath from it. We're receiving like higher interest rates. It's a lot of people getting laid off right now. The tech gurus aren't saying, "Oh yeah, it's so easy to get in." Because people are like, "Oh yeah, you can." Like, matter of fact, PB, I know you were talking about how you are. I don't know if you said you work with GRC. You still work with GRC now?
Yeah, I still do.
So there was a guy on TikTok. He was talking about how easy it was to get into GRC. And then I was like, that's not really easy, because I know some people who work in GRC like yourself, but then also people I worked with when I was an intern, it took them years to be able to get to the point where they could get a GRC role.
Oh, facts. And there's not a ton of GRC jobs out there. I mean, there is, but when you look at a team, there's probably only 1 or 2 GRC people on a security team, unless you work for a big company.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not enough. People are saying that the amount of jobs has spiked up, but people aren't really hiring for the jobs right now, man. And then there'll be like a contract role for like 3 to 5 months, and then there's no chance for it moving forward. We just need you for this like one project, and then we'll let you go.
And the sad part about it is, in the bigger companies, they will hire you for that spot, but then they would try to put you somewhere else. But now once that spot leaves, that consulting company's firing you. They're not like trying to find you additional work. They're like body shots. They got a spot they can put it in, but if they don't, there's very little bench time anymore.
And then I remember they say that's a bad thing if you say like you ran out of work to do. Like you need to just keep coming up with work or something like that. Like you need to be so proactive.
I got lucky in my last job, and I think I'm gonna do a video on it. They like me, and I worked for them 6 years. I was on a bench with I think I did a video. I said bench life with PBO or something. I was on a bench for 6 months with no work while they try to find me work. I was studying AWS because I'm like, they ain't gonna keep me on a bench that long. But they kept me on for 7 months. I think they kept me on a month for every year I worked for them. Which was cool.
Yeah, that's really good. And that was a contract.
Yeah. Well, no, it was weird. I worked for them, but they had a contract with the state. The crazy thing is, I brought the contract for the state to them. They wouldn't, you needed to be a special company. They call it a sole source company. You had to be on this list for the state of Indiana. I was on a short-term contract that was a long-term, so they told me to find a long-term contract. So the company I worked for, they didn't have any long-time work. So my buddy worked for them. So long story short, I brought the contract to them, and I stayed there for like I think 7 years. So they kept me on the bench for 7 months. So they were really apologetic. So I'm like, dude, I never thought I'd sit on the bench. So I got 4 AWS certifications, man, while they were trying to find me work.
Mm-hmm.
So that worked out well for me. But now a lot of times if you're on a, but the crazy thing is, your job is to find me work. I shouldn't have to find my own self work. You the company. But that's the crazy part.
Yeah, I saw a quote that said something along the lines of the worst thing that could happen at a job is that they don't tell you what to do. So it's kind of like if they don't tell you what to do, it's kind of like, oh man, I don't have anything to do.
Now I guess I've been doing this forever. Most companies don't tell me what to do, but because usually at a high term, they like, well, we need to be at this level of compliance, right? So I know the steps to get to that, but I know what you're saying a lot of times. I just been doing this long enough where I need to meet with these teams, I need to meet with these managers, I need to come up with this gap analysis, I need to come up with this is the stuff you need to come up with budget money for. But I know, but like I said, I've been doing this for 20 years, so I kind of know what the crazy thing though is. I've been doing this so long, I come up with the list, then I delegate it out. That's how I am. Because you're the engineer, so you got to harden the pipeline, right? You got to harden your code. I'm just going to give you the checks and stuff for you to go through to make that happen, right? Then you report back to me and say, I did these 8 things, these 5 things I couldn't do, PBO. We need to talk about this. This is going to break my app. So what would we need to talk about that? What does that need to look like? Or it's going to take me a year because I got to change this whole underlying infrastructure because of how we did it. You know, services built on top of other services. So all these 5 services we built on, we're going to have to change those. Okay. Like, don't do that. That's going to cost too much money. But long story short, you know, once you get to a certain level, that's part of what people pay you to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. I mean, right now I'm in the individual contributor stage. And I mean, really, at my last company, even though I was on a leadership team, I was still on the entry level side. 5 years in. So I was like, God, Lee, is it? Well, getting a promotion, I heard, is not necessarily more money. It could just be more responsibility.
All the time. It is. But the crazy thing, though, once you get to a certain level, is my responsibility is super high, but my work is super small. Meaning I'm responsible for how people do stuff. I'm not doing it, but I got to check to make sure it's done. I got to do assessment. I got to do an audit, and I got to do the monitoring of it, right? So I'll sign it out, but then I got to make sure it gets done and how we're going to monitor and how we're going to test and how do we know we're still in compliance? Once again, especially for the IRS, I used to do that type of work, right? So it's crazy. Is I delegate that work out, but then I got to go make sure it's done properly. Or you as a data engineer, we got to have a conversation because we got to talk about security. I don't want to dictate how you do your work. I just need to say how you doing it, if it's compliant or not. And if it's not, how do we fix it together where we both buy in, to security as a team, as an organization, right? Not me beat you about the head of how to do code, right? So that's kind of my strategy. A lot of times security people try to beat people about the head, but I'm like, they're not going to buy in if I beat them about the head, right? Now it's adversarial between me and them. I want to try to make it collaborative.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, and then, I know when, especially in interviews, it's almost as if they want you to just only talk about yourself. Like if you bring up that I worked with a team, sometimes it can hurt you.
No, you're right, but what you got to do is you got to talk about self, but then when you got to talk about the team, it's you self. How do you drive about the team? And the other thing I tell people is, I want all the smoke. Anything the team mess up on, that comes back to me because they're my team, right? My team doesn't get blamed for anything. If I'm coaching them and directing my team, all that comes back to me, right? So I take full responsibility. So even though it's your team, all that comes back to you because you the tip of the spear. I'm about this life. So that's how you drive that. I'm responsible. Everything falls on me. So even though you're talking about the team, you the tip of the spear and you driving that team. Right.
So okay. I can say like something like I'm responsible for
Yeah.
the deployment of something,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
of this project.
Or yeah, you say, or basically what you say, I delegated out the team, but all the responsibility comes back to team. Like we looked at from the slideshow. I'm responsible. I check the compliance. I check the monitoring. I I do all the approval of what goes out, right? So for my team. So really all that comes back to you as the manager of the team. Approval, accepting it, figuring out risk of your team, doing peer reviews of your team, right? So you driving your team and you're responsible for your team. And all that rolls up to you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Because at a senior position, a lot of times I gotta mentor people. So what does that look like? So if I mentor people, right, really all that responsibility goes up to me because that's part of mentoring your team. Right.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Hold on real quick. Shout out to Axel Foley from my hometown, 317. Going to security next year. I'd rather give the orders than to be the guy driving back at 1 a.m. for a security patch every week. Facts. And one reason I got out of production, man, I was getting PSTD, man. We would put stuff would break. And like I said, if some of my team breaks up, all that shit rolls up to me. I'm driving in or I'm talking to people on the phone. What the hell's going on, man? I thought we tested this before we put it in production. What's the problem, man? Then, like you said, then two is like we talked about start. What is my exception rate? What is my bug rate? Are we clean or not clean? What stuff am I putting in place so we can monitor to make sure our code is clean or our peer review? Are we doing PMD, fuzz testing? What are we doing to make sure our code is clean so we don't have to come in at 1 a.m. for security patches? Shout out to Fuller. I think he does more networking, so that's probably more Cisco type patches and Juniper type patches, not software type patches. But
yeah. And speaking of Axel Foley, we had the new Beverly Hills Cop come out.
Facts. I need to see that. What and is that on Netflix or the movies?
It's on Netflix.
Yeah, for some reason I thought it was more. I was like, everybody said, oh, it's on Netflix. I'm like, okay, I need to go check that out.
Yeah, man. I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched like a little bit of it. It was good though. It was good. I had never watched any Beverly Hills Cop, so I got to go back.
That's probably before your time. Man. I think I was skinny when Beverly Hills Cop came out. Yeah, Eddie was skinny back then. He picked up a little weight. Shout out to Eddie, though. Now, fine.
But yeah, there was something that you just said. Oh yeah, my dad's also in networking.
Okay.
So he got his what is it? The Cisco.
Yeah. CCNA problem.
Yeah, CCNA. Yep, CCNA and the ITIL.
Okay.
Yeah. He got like a few different. He's like a person who just gets a whole bunch of certifications.
That ain't bad, man. That ain't bad.
So I think he got PMP as well. So he got a whole bunch.
That's next on my list because as I get out, well, the real thing is in security. A lot of times I end up doing project management a lot of times on those. So I was like, man, I need to get my PMP.
You know, I was thinking if I wanted to make a career, like a transition, I was talking to my career coach about it. He was saying, you can make a career transition, but it has to be kind of related to what you are.
Yeah, 100%. I agree with that.
Because if I go and say, hey, I want to get a PMP, is that even similar at all to data engineering?
Well, because a lot of times too is project management. Usually you doing software. Part of software is data engineering. So I think you could do software development teams now because that's data engineering is similar to that. And a lot of times you got pipeline even in software. So no, I think that's similar. And a lot of times most project managers I work with, a lot of them really don't know what that is from a software system development lifecycle. So I think that's a natural pivot, especially when you get a little older. Most of those guys are a little older.
Yeah, because I'm noticing. I mean, people. I know some project managers they don't have a PMP. They just
you don't need one.
They go the business analyst route and then they go the PMP.
Yeah, well, a lot of times I see people you're on a team and they just make you a supervisor over programming, and half the time when you're supervising, most of the times you end up project managing it as a supervisor. So that's why I see a lot of people go from senior developer into project management over the team, right? So a lot of times you end up as a senior developer. A lot of times you end up doing project management work for your team, because like we talked about in the configuration management, you talking about scope of work, cost, capacity. So to be able to do that, a lot of times you have to have done it, right? So you got a lot of background into those, and you understand the different prices for a SQL Server, AWS, those different services that the development teams use. So to be a project manager, you got to understand that at least at a high level. Now, shout out to my man. He's talking about working on his CNNP. He became the security firewall guy this year. So doing some security stuff.
Awesome, man. Love to hear that. But yeah, sounds like I may be making a pivot, man, because that engineering, man, trying to find jobs in it is kind of a little bit more difficult than it needs to be.
Yeah, I was surprised when you brought that up, but I guess listen to Black Heights. I guess now it's not it's understandable why, but it's like you said. I thought you would have especially with your years and everything. So yeah, I was a little perplexed, but there's a lot of people laid off, and two is a lot of companies look for certain people that kind of fits their organization. And I'm talking the third purpose. Sometimes PBO is not an organizational fit. so that's always an issue.
Some people do want me to help them with their companies, though, man. People want me to do free work, man. I'll be like,
I've done that for years. I over the years, I probably own 3% of companies, people that gave me equity. 0 times 0, 0. So I've done that a lot. And I still do that, but I don't have to do as much work. Long story short, people do something. They need some security documentation, some security policies and procedures now because people are asking for startups to have security now, finally. So, but now you got to be careful with that. I got $1 million worth of equity that's worth 0. So I've done that a lot. So.
But yeah, man, and that's one of the things I wanted to. Oh, go ahead.
No, you see, ours best way to cut costs is not to pay for your support services. So
yeah. One thing I've noticed is I don't know if because you had like consulting work that you've done outside of the organization, right?
Yeah, I made $30,000 on Upwork about 3 years ago. It almost killed me, but yeah, I've done it. You been on Upwork?
I have been on Upwork.
Yeah. Now that's a hard way to make money because it took me 5 months to figure out how to bid on a contract to actually win one.
Really?
Yeah, because go ahead.
I just applied for jobs on there.
Well, a job really is a contract, right? Because since you freelance, they ask you, tell me about yourself, tell me about you or your company and why you should get. Then sometimes they want a breakdown of your work and what milestones you're going to do them in, like project management. The thing it took me a while is you've been against, and I'm going to do a video. Long story short, shout out to Mr. Finesse and Chris Whitlock I was going to do a course. I was going to bid on work on Upwork, win it, then do it with my students so they could get real world experience. But long story short, it took me a while to figure out, especially Oracle. I could charge $40, $50, $60 an hour. Dudes were doing that overseas for $20 an hour. I'm like, dude, I got to figure out something that made money. So you got to figure out your price range versus your competitors. That was the weird thing for me. Then two is, what's the sweet spot? For me, it's assessment. People trying to do federal work. So those pay decent. And I had 20 years of that. So it took me, I want to say 4 months before I won my first $5,000 contract. But I was bidding and I was losing. I wasn't even close to winning. I was getting no call back. So it took me a while to figure out how to word my proposal, right? Try to, convince people to use me, especially if I'm new. So.
But yeah, I did, my career coach did tell me that it may be a hard transition to get to project management because it may take like a several months kind of thing to kind of gain the skills that they would look for a project manager. But I could go into data analytics or a data analyst role, and that's essentially the same thing as a business analyst. So you can kind of make that transition there.
No, I agree. For me, we talked about stacking skills. So that's so when you stack a skill, like you said, it's not a big pivot for you to get there because you have a lot of the base skills before you got there. Like I started off as a developer, then I was building my own Apache and Tomcat to test my Java code. So when I became a web admin, it wasn't a big deal because I was doing that in the test environment, right? So when I started doing that on DoD, somebody asked me, I'm like, yeah, I build my own stuff. So then, right, it was an easy pivot because that's how I was testing my code in production. Then part of testing my code was we were doing VMs and stuff. So when I started doing infrastructure, I was building VMs already to test my code and spin up virtual machines. So that wasn't a big pivot when I went to infrastructure, right? Because I just kept adding skills that I was already doing. And I was doing it in tests. So, just doing it in production, I guess in real world wasn't a big leap. So kind of same thing when I went to security, right? I was kind of already doing it in bits and pieces. So
yeah, and I'm noticing that a lot of companies are wanting multiple skills and like a whole bunch of different tools. And I think it's something that you said earlier, but so it's like they want you, like, even as a data engineer, and data engineers, we don't really work on like the visualization that much. We work on the building of the infrastructure. We work with the security teams to make sure that everything's set up correctly.
Facts.
We provide the data for the data analysts, the project managers, and data scientists for them to be able to do their job. And I remember, I don't know if I told you this, PBO. I remember I went to a conference and this guy said, "Are you looking for data engineering roles?" And then I told him, "Yeah. Oh, I can introduce you to somebody right now who's hiring data engineers." Did I tell you that story?
Yeah, keep going though. Keep going. That's a good story.
And then I walk over to him. I say, "Yeah, come on, let's go get on him." Walk over to him, ask him like, "Hey, I heard that you were hiring data engineers. I'd like to hear more about the opportunity." And he was like a director of some. I think it was like a Fortune 500 company. So it would have been a great opportunity if it. But anyway, so what he said was, he said, "Oh, you're a data engineer. You're a DE. Oh no, I only hire data scientists and software engineers." So I was like, "Oh, okay, that's fine." And then he said, "Yeah, in my experience, I don't think that data engineers are that good. I think that data engineering teams aren't that valuable. I can just ask my software engineers to pull data." And then I was thinking about it when he said that. I was like, well, data engineers do way more than just pull data. There's a lot of things we do that, that people may not know. We may just simplify it as we move data from one place to the other. So, but you essentially could ask a data scientist to do the same thing as a data engineer, or a software engineer to do the same thing. It just depends on if they want to or not. Do you want to do the setting up the infrastructure? Do you want to do the providing queries and reports to stakeholders?
Well, it depends though, and I think, and I'll let you chime on this. A lot of the new software engineers, they just program software. They're not setting up any infrastructure. They're not setting up any Apache. Right? A lot of them don't know it and don't want to know that. And a lot of new software engineers use Hibernate, or I forgot the SQL Server term of that, where they call an object and it creates the SQL below them for them. A lot of times they use that to create their data structures. And that's why I think their data and their queries suck, because they're letting third-party tools. So a lot of developers don't even know what that is. So the question is, are your software engineers, do they understand that? Because I was surprised how many from Java, they were using Hibernate. It was creating these weird-ass queries off of their Java objects. I'm like, dude. That and they have the proper indexing, but I'm old school where you started from the database and built up. So all that stuff, because you didn't have a lot of memory, your SQL had to be super tight. It's not like that anymore. So a lot of times when they say that, you gotta get your comeback ready, B2B. Well, okay, does your engineer understand SQL? Because a lot of them don't.
Yeah, I should have said that. And honestly, I was trying not to be rude to him.
No,
that was my thing.
He started it. Shit.
Yeah.
But you have to be rude. You have to just be rude. You're like, okay, I work for different companies. Do your software engineer, are they SQL SMEs? I'm a SQL SME. I roll my skis up and get dirty. I talk about SQL execution patterns, SQL optimization. Most people don't know what that is. So my job will be to help your developers to make sure their SQL's tight because when the app is slow, 80% of the time they SQL suck. So I can do that type of high level optimization, high level SQL query because I'm a SME. Because each database, kind of like that one dude was beating you up, each database has certain SQL syntax that works best for that database.
Exactly.
Let me help you, right? So you got to be ready with them questions. B2B, you got to jump back on them, man.
Yeah, that's something I got to work on, man. Because I was always taught, don't try to be rude and stuff like that.
Because I learned, I had a couple people jump on my ass like that. So now my coworkers, they be joking. They know who I am. They be like, don't be beating nobody up, PBO. I be warming up. I'm like, okay, if he gonna be an asshole, I'm gonna be an asshole. So I'm warming up, stretching. So if you gonna start it, I'm gonna finish it. Let's go. But now you gotta stop being that. But two is the sad part is I expect certain people to attack me. So I'm ready. Let's go. I'm gonna show you I'm a bad man. Let's go. Let's go.
I know enough to be dangerous.
No, I know. I'm about this life. Let's go. So I'm ready. So if you want to shout out to Carmel Drip, I'm glad she can join me. Hey, how you doing? So you gotta be ready with those type of, I wouldn't call them attacks, but because people gonna come for you B2B in this industry. Right. Mm-hmm. So you got but two is I got some, but then he kind of like pulled the rug. Oh, well, no, data engineers are not, they're not valuable, but I'm different. I'm about this life, but I'm gonna show you, right? So just because I'm called a data engineer, my skill set runs deep, right? So you got to be ready to jump on them, man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I thought about it. Something else that you said, I work on big systems. I don't work on little systems.
No, I work on big boys. So because people use certain degree, like I went to Harvard, I worked at DOD, man. I worked with 400 programmers, man. What are you talking about? I ran 1 billion rows before you could spin up BMs. So hey, let's go. So what are you talking about, man? So let's roll up and and two, like you said, some people just gonna be an a-hole. So I like I said, I'm ready. B2B, do you have a degree related to your current field of data engineer? If so, how does it affect your job search and recruitment? That's a good question, B2B. I know what it is, but go ahead, chime in on that. I know what it is.
Right. I do have a degree from Georgia State University in computer science with a concentration in databases and knowledge-based systems. So I got a degree specific to databases and knowledge-based systems. So that's why I made that transition into data engineering. And I've been doing it for over 5 years. It's coming up to 6 years, actually. So it's kind of like it's one of those things where I have experience, I have a degree related to it, have certifications in it and everything. But I have to get like PBO, man, and be like, one of the things I'm starting to say is I had to give you the result that you're looking for. So if you're looking for if you saying, hey, I'm gonna attack this guy and stuff like that, or I'm gonna be adversarial. All right, let's go ahead and get it then. Turn it up so that I can show you what I'm made of.
What's the statement? I match your energy. Ain't that what the kids say? If you nice, I'm nice. If you want to roll up to sleep, hey, let's go, man. I'm about this. I enjoy it. Let's go. Then I'm gonna start attacking you.
Oh yeah, matter of fact. Can you tell me?
I've done people like that.
Keywords.
I've done people like that, man. We got on some kind of security, and he attacked me, and I just spent it around. Well, I did this level. What have you done? Can I get some of your background? And my boss was
exactly what I should have done.
And my boss was like a little kid. They were like, ooh, ooh. I'm like, okay, this is my credentials. What are your credentials? Okay,
PBO, I should have done that in the interview because he did not introduce himself at all.
It took me 10 years to get here, man. It took me a couple times to get a black eye, man. It's not now. Like I said, I come in the room warming up. I'm old. I got to stretch because I like whatever energy you giving, I'm giving. Hold on, let me get this one question real quick. Let me get this one. Now, shout out to Bit Native. A lot of people aren't hip to this. One important steps in DBD is normalization, data storage, at least. Yep. Yeah, facts. I'm third normalization. I did third form. I got mine when I was doing relational. In mathematics, it's called tuples. That's how old I am. So yeah, you got to do third form when I was in school. I don't even know if they do that more, but that's the traditional third normalization form.
Yeah, we still have normalization now. I mean, like it's like the first, second, and third form normalization.
Most people don't know what that is, man.
And they also have like the denormalization as well.
Dedupe, so you can make your queries quicker because you're taking summarization. So
that's exactly.
See, that's what you got to B2B. You got to beat them up with it, man. So hey, you attacking me? Okay, this is my credentials now. What's yours? Let's go.
Right, because I remember because the guy he didn't like he asked me to introduce myself. Mm-hmm. He didn't say anything about himself. He didn't even say his name.
Oh yeah, I get that a lot. I get that a lot. I think that's people not business savvy. So
yeah. So I was like, man, the more I think about it, I was like, wait a second. So I had to ask him, hey, how do you pronounce your name? And oh yeah, that's right. Okay, let's go ahead and get into it. And then he didn't say anything about himself. He didn't say anything about the project either. He just went straight into what's your business. I mean, what's your knowledge?
He was looking for a fight, so let's go.
Yeah.
R Square says she haven't heard tuples, and they don't use that anymore. R Square, we don't talk about tuples very much.
You use tuple, maybe a different kind of. I haven't heard of tuples in the form of SQL, but I've heard of tuples in the form of Python.
Well, they don't talk about this anymore because databases are kind of ubiquitous. That's why I'm a relational is based on mathematics, and the mathematics term for a role is a tuple. But like I said, that shit we was doing 88 where they were proving that shit mathematically from a relational database. They used to do that they don't do that anymore. You get SQL Server and get you an object mapper. Shit, you don't even write SQL statements anymore. So that's a mathematical term. Google that, R squared. That's a mathematical term for relational databases proved mathematically. Once again, that's an old term. Sound like y'all two keep taking me to a brief database course. Yeah, we can do a day. Shout out to the database. But go ahead, keep it techie. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, go ahead, B2B.
But yeah, man, I think that's extremely important now because I think that's actually what they were looking for is for somebody to kind of sit them down, like you're like, okay, I want to attack you, then I just know so much. Oh, you went to the wrong, you messed with the wrong person.
Yeah, they do. My boss was like that, and when I first went there, it was kind of intimidating because we did peer reviews. You had to write your procedure or your concept or your business logic on the board, and people would attack you, man. It took me a while to get used to that. I'm like, damn, they really attacking me. So now I'm used to it because now people don't really do that now. Peer reviews is more of a friendlier thing. When I did that DOD, I don't know if people were trying to scale up or figure out who the best. It was like a technical challenge of your manhood. So I'm all about that life, man. The first time I did it, I almost went home and cried, man. I'm like, damn, he just jumped up all my shit. So I think people do that, and I think a lot of, especially CTOs, they arrogant like that. So I think they looking for that fight or, like you said, this rudeness, I guess, to challenge them to show who's the best SQL or object oriented or whatever business process or whatever you're trying to do. So, Like I said, I'm gonna match your energy, whatever it is. Let's go.
Yeah, let's have a sequel off.
Yeah, we can do it, right. So,
yeah, I might have to make a post about that, VBO.
So yeah, let me know. I'll jump on it. But or you like you said, but two, yeah, I just kind of picked that out over the years. And and the weird thing is I didn't know I was doing it until one of my colleagues brought it up. I guess somebody kind of I thought people were attacking me unfairly in some of these meetings. So I was like, well, fuck, let's go. So now I'm just ready for it. If you elevate, I elevate. I can play nice, but hey, if you want to go there, especially in security, Oracle, shit, let's go, man. There's very few people can handle me in that. So let's do it, man. We can do it.
Yeah, PPO. Yeah, he gave me a new perspective on it.
Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, I need to look at your video and comment on your video with my video. But yeah, it's just weird. Like I said, DOD was just a different monster. I knew it was gonna be competitive, but the crazy thing is once I got there, I was like, dude, I can handle 90% of these people here. I was a little nervous before I went, but once I got there, I'm like, oh yeah, I can handle 90% of y'all. I'm at the same level or better than y'all, so let's go.
You know what? And then that's another thing is that as I get older, but I think it's also because I have you in my network and
Mhm.
everybody else from YouTube in my network. But I went. I think I'm going more from being humble to being a little bit more arrogant. If that
You
makes
gotta
any
be.
sense.
No, you gotta be. I would call it confidence, but I see what you're saying. But because and shout out to Struggle Security because he's actually in that high level management. People try you, and
Mm-hmm.
I think, and it's just weird. So I don't know what that's based on, but people would try you. So just over the years, I just expect people to try me.
Yeah, but
Right.
I mean in that sense of not necessarily like yeah, you can be confident. Yeah, I'm confident in my abilities that I can do the job. But the arrogance is, oh wait a second, you think that I'm a lower level than you? What
No,
makes you
fine.
think you better than me?
Facts. I
It's
call
not
it confidence. I see what you're saying, but yeah.
right. Like it almost get down to like, oh, that's almost beneath me or something like that because or somebody commented on one of my videos, maybe you should try and get a job that you'll be more competent in, like data entry. I
Yeah.
was looking at them like, wait a second, now you over here insulting me. You see
It
what I
did.
mean?
Oh yeah, and two is I expect shout out to we was talking about him and shit.
Struggle
So
security.
yeah, but two is I think if you want to come up, I know you got dad duty half the time. I dropped the link. But two is I think over the years I just got used to that. Like I said, I didn't get in management. Shout out to my man Struggle Security. I'll drop the link if you want to come up. I know you're busy most of the time, so it's all you. So you just kind of two is as you get older, you figure out who you are, what you are, and kind of where you at. And two is like I said, I just been doing this for long. It took me just a while to figure out I can handle 90% of these people. So let's go, man.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to start it, I can finish. I'm matching your energy. And it's weird. When I was younger, I think okay, don't wake the kids
Right.
up. Yeah, we don't want to. We catch you on
Right.
another. Don't be waking no babies up, man. I want to get the missus yelling at me and you.
Right.
But
She was yelling
no,
at me too.
yeah. No, that's cool, struggle. No worries. We wrapping up. We've been on a minute. But now I think too, as you get used to it, you figure out your lane. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then two is you just talk specifically to your lane you're comfortable with. Because I tell people, I was interviewed a lot of times. I just tell people, I don't do that, man. This is what I'm good at. I'm good at 4 things. I don't go out of my lane, man. This is what I'm good at. This is what you're gonna pay me for. I don't deviate from that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
The reason
So
why they have lines on the street said where people stay in their lane.
but a lot of times now though, but they want you to have 20 skill sets now. A lot of times when they interview, they want you to have this specific tool at this, and they're not taking any alternatives too. So I don't
Yep,
know.
I remember I had applied for a job with Hack a Job,
Okay.
and they were looking for data engineers, and then they said like when I was applying through their portal like for the application, it said, oh, you have less than 10 skills on this specific job. Like you had to add more skills to it for each job that you worked at. And then I was like, wait a second, that don't even make no sense. Like 10 different skills for each separate job that you're working with, but it's like the same position. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think to me that's recruiters don't know what they're talking about because you're not gonna have every specific tool that a job is using. And two is if you have something similar, if you done a pipeline, they're pretty much the same. If you done data engineering, the certain, databases are certain same. Um, so you're not gonna have everything. You can have Jenkins versus something else versus this versus that. But I think now, I guess with so many people laid out, they're looking, you have, like you said, these 10 specific skills and touch every tool they have. I'm like, dude, who's gonna have that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But you know what, BBO, I'm sitting here looking back on it and I'm thinking, maybe I should have gone about things a little bit differently. Not only with the interview from the other day, but also just like my career in general. because I think one of the things that people are looking for in leadership is the ability to stand up for your team. So they want to know if you can be like, have that dog in you, or
because sometimes you gotta. I hate this term. Shout out to my man. I'm having my trip. Sometimes you gotta yank the tail of your team to make sure they're on point. And I failed the first time I became supervisor. I sucked at it, to be honest. Because you're trying to be friends. I didn't know, where I'm at. We used to be friends. Now I'm the manager. So it takes you a while to kind of figure that out. And shout out to Structural Security. He probably would be better chiming in on that. So now I just kind of got an understanding of how I want to run a team, right? And kind of what my responsibility is to my team. And two is what's my process for making a team successful. All right. So, and two is some of that you got to run it, but two is you got to find the skill set of your team. Because when you're a supervisor, a lot of times they don't let you fire your team, right? So sometimes you got to figure out how to manage your team and corral your team and move people in the right sex to make them successful. I'll struggle you say he's still learning himself. So like I said, so that's one reason I think that I failed is I had a couple bad teams. So where Structural Security at, I probably should have been right there with kind of where he's at. I just didn't want none of that smoke. They were getting on my damn nerves, and I would responsibilities, and I couldn't, I couldn't fire anybody. It was just really wearing me out.
Yeah, and then also I remember my dad told me one time I was going through, like I had a team member who was absolutely terrible, but he got through because he was really cool with the director.
Facts.
And he literally did nothing for months.
Facts.
Like we were asking to do something, he asked me to do it for him. I was like, wait a second now, like I have like 5 different things I need to do. I'm asking you to do one thing, and you can't even help me out with doing this.
B2B. I learned that at DOD because it was ex-military guys that were cool guys. That shit used to bother me. I talked to my guy I'm cool with. He said, man, that's part of government contracting. There's people that's not going to do anything on this government contract. They're liked by somebody. You just got to put them in the corner and keep working. That drove me crazy for about a year. But then I just came to me. That's how I get extra work, and my pay is going to be the same. Right. It took me, but I ain't gonna be like, I'm like, dude, I'm over here working extra and I'm about to punch you in your mouth. But then I thought, he just told me, he goes, dude, long story short, this called a 14. There's grades. That's high shit. He's like, he's cool with the 14, man. We can't make him do shit. Put him in the corner. This project's got to get done. There's nothing you can do about it. You can huff and puff. That's it. We're gonna get paid the same. We're gonna do the same amount of work. We ain't doing no extra. We ain't speaking up. That's just how it's gonna be. Like I told you, I had to get over my feelings. That's why I got the term. Like, you gotta give your feelings. That has nothing to do with us. If he's cool with the boss, that's cool. He gonna sit in the corner. We gotta move. Get out your feelings. We gotta get this money. I like, okay, that's why I told you that. I wanted to punch him in the throat. I'm like, he ain't doing jack. He just sitting over there smiling, like he like, dude, he's cool with the 14. We gonna keep moving.
Yeah, because it got odd to a certain point because he would go in there. And like we had to like give our updates. He wouldn't be on the call. He'd be like, "Oh, yeah, no updates for today." And he'll be like for the whole week. For the whole week.
But like at DOD, you gotta tell her. I'm gonna let my homie Carmel drip. What you got for us today? I see you. Go ahead. Can you hear me?
She put in the chat, "Hey,
I see. Can you hear me?" You might need to switch your because then you have to switch your audio. Oh, okay, that's cool. Okay. Go ahead. We can chop in the back. Oh, how are you doing? Well, go ahead, B2B. Keep going.
Yeah. Essentially, I asked my dad about it. He told me to tell the director he ain't doing nothing.
No, leave that shit alone, man. Leave that shit alone, man. I figured that out. I was surprised. Once I figured out, it's just the game, man. And especially at DOD, probably 20% of your project is just hanger owners. There's people cool with somebody, or somebody got promoted, or some government employee they want to have it. they want to have it. So it's just part of the game, man. Like I said, that's why I told you to get out your feelings. I had to get out of mine. I thought that shit was crazy. I'm like, yeah. So yeah, that's just part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it, man. That's just part of it, man. You're gonna have people who ain't doing nothing on a project. People get paid. People over there just collecting a check.
Yeah.
So that's just it, man. Your pay gonna be the same. But two is a lot of times is I got to learn extra stuff for other people that really didn't want to work. So anything I wanted to learn, I taught myself Java at DoD because I didn't have anything to do for a while, and they said I could learn it. So next thing I know, I'm running the Java team.
That's a good point because I remember it was a few instances where I'm sitting up here doing all this work, and then perfect example. We had 3 people on the team, 3 data engineers, and then it was me and one other person who had like several different tasks to do, and there was like one more task that we needed to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And then we had a third person there, and then we were like, okay, well, I'm the leader on the team, on the data engineers. So I'm saying, okay, well, hey, let me go ahead and this one last task. He doesn't have anything on his Jira. He doesn't have any Jira tickets. Like, it's completely free. Let's go ahead and put it on his task because it needs to get done, and then we can talk about it because he didn't join the call at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So then you can put it on there. He's already familiar with the task.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I say, hey, so a Scrum Master, you can put it on his thing, and then we can talk about it and stuff like that. He went to the director about me, saying, oh, well, why couldn't William just do it? And then I was saying, like, man, I had like 4 or 5 different things. They said,
no,
he
right.
said, man. Oh, what you say?
What's going on?
It's crazy.
Hold on, real quick, Struggle. And I'll let Struggle. You get that? We just figured out that these people wasn't gonna do any work, which is sad on a government contract. My boss got to this certain point. He was like, "I'm not gonna sign him any work because I know he's not gonna do it. And I know he's gonna mess it up." Because I asked him, I'm like, "Dude, why am I trying to work?" He goes, "Because I know he's not gonna get it done. And I know you gonna get it done. And when your promotion come up, I'm gonna give you a bonus." I'm like, "Well, I'm done." So that's now let's struggle. Big contracts, you don't have that B2B. I was surprised. On a big federal contract, we probably had 600 people. 20% of those people wasn't doing shit, man.
Yeah, but also I think it was because I was he is the one who got promoted, and I was still entry level. So I think he was also why is this guy who's lower level than me asking to get work to me? I think that was also it too.
But he was cool, and I seen it too. He was cool with the 14 of the guy running the project, man.
Yeah,
and life ain't fair, man. So go ahead, chime in on that structural security.
It's definitely not fair. No, you're right. Life is definitely not fair, especially in these corporate environments, man.
Right.
Well, my last firm, man, I used to, and I think I told you about this, ProfessorBlackOps. I actually had a brother that I was reporting to. He was a senior manager within my organization, and I don't know how I got in his group, where I guess I was supposed to be supporting, but then it just turned out to be like I'm reporting directly to him without any of my knowledge, and I'm like, yo, this is crazy. But he was just he was the worst person to work for. I mean, to the point where, like you mentioned, he don't show up to meetings. He's not very verbose about what he's asking for. He'll tear apart work when it was just a bad situation, because he wasn't even really a practitioner, like a security practitioner. He had primarily been like kind of like an enterprise IT manager. So he would manage SOCs and whatnot, right? So he never had done consulting. He never done that type of work before. But like, I guess because nobody else was there and he was there for the longest, he just became senior manager. Anyway, I say all that to say, I was never supposed to be in that role. I was never supposed to be in that position. I was never supposed to be in his group because there was nothing I could learn there. There was nothing that he did not have good leadership. He did not have strategy. He didn't have vision. He was just there to kind of churn out some particular type of work. And I think that was one of the major motivations for me leaving, right? Because they weren't about to promote me to his same level, especially seeing that I was in his group. They weren't about to promote me to that level. So when I left, I went zoomed up 3 levels beyond. So it was just a crazy time. But kind of to y'all point of, that leadership and kind of that bull crap that you got to deal with, man, sometimes you just got to get out of there. That's what I experienced.
You think that maybe I'm just cynical on my own. I just think that part of the game, you're going to get that a couple runs. And like you said, either you're going to move to a new division in your org or you're going to move to a whole different org. I just think that's part of the game, which it shouldn't be. It is. You're going to get a bad manager or a bad run or even a bad project, and it's really not your fault. It's your team, and a lot of times you can't drive it. You just kind of stuck sometimes.
You got to quickly identify it, though, man. You because like you mentioned, you can be stuck. You got to quickly identify it and quickly identify what your next course of action needs to be to get where you desire to be. Because I was in that role for 3 years. Right? Wow, I was in a management role. Yeah, I was at a center for 3 years long.
I'll be right back out running. Let me hit this bathroom.
I was there for 3 years long, and I'm like, nah, this is not the move, because I'm not getting to where in every single year I'm up for promotion, and they're like, you're doing the work for the next level, but yet, we just don't have the spots, or there's not budget this year, or we don't have the position, or we need other reports in order to. It was always some excuse for them to not put me where I desired to be in my career. Yeah, and I'm go ahead.
Yeah, Gabe, I have experienced the exact same thing. They literally promoted every single person on the team except for me and the contractors who actually weren't employed by the company. So I'm sitting here like, man, I brought it up to them. 2 years passed by, no promotion. They said, when I did the review, you're a solid performer, and you did this right. You worked on all these projects and stuff like that. I worked on over 100 and something different projects at the company. Yeah.
How did you compare to your peers that had got promoted? How did you compare to them? Did they work on more projects? Were they better or?
Not only were they newer than me, so they didn't work there as long, so they didn't work on as many projects. They were older. They were just a lot. I remember my director telling me at one point, he was like, you're the youngest person on the team. And
there it is. Ageism, right? That whole, because ageism can, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, I believe it can work both ways.
Fact.
They can treat people better or promote people more because of their age, or they can hold those people, those older or the younger people, back because of their age. So that's a company culture issue, right? Yep. If that's a group dynamic and company culture issue, and recognize that early, man, that's extremely important to getting where you desire to be.
Yeah, the feds are real bad about that. Like you said, it's just a time thing. The longer you stay, people start dropping off, and you just kind of, sometimes you get promoted to your level of competence. Go ahead, BD.
Screw that. Where I want to be. It ain't about them. It's where I want to be.
No,
that's
right. It's where I want to be.
I'm telling you.
So, Gabe, I brought up an interview I did yesterday.
How'd that go?
It was terrible. It was a terrible interview. Honestly, because it was the same kind of stuff. I think I told you about the last one. Same company, and they didn't turn on their camera when I got in there. They didn't introduce themselves. They went straight into the questions, and I'm trying to use the STAR method to answer the question because he was asking me about my experience. And as I'm answering, he kept cutting me off to ask me another question, and then guys drills deep into, even to the point where he almost was asking me like, what lines of code, like what calculations did you use for this specific project? And I was like, man, I don't have the code base in front of me to just remember that, or I'll get a question right, and then he had to find a way to make it so that way I could get it wrong. Like, what if?
So it went terrible from the interviewer's side, not so much in how you answered, or a combination of the both.
It was like it was things that I could easily Google, but I don't like if you ask me to tell you, oh, what's the differences between Microsoft SQL Server and Google Cloud BigQuery, and I tell you, oh, okay, one is a data warehouse that's not a traditional relational database. The other one is a traditional relational database that has more DDL statements. And then,
okay, so we just ask you basic questions and then following up with more in-depth questions to the point where it seemed like he wants you to answer a question that he had for the day or something. That's what it sounded like.
It was like it was like, oh no, I want specifically if I have a procedure that does this, what can I not use in this that I can use in this? And I was like, I don't know off the top of my head, you know, what you could use. You had to give me like a scenario or something like that. It was just so specific.
Okay.
But
so just a bad interview.
And then it got to the point where they just like, oh, that's all the questions I have. Have a good day. And then they hung up the phone. I was like, wait. I was like, wait a second.
Yeah, that don't sound like nobody or nowhere where you want to work anyway. That don't even sound like a place where you want to be.
But struggle too, I still B2B. I'll let you chime in on this. I think he's got to match their energy, right? That dude was being a dick, and I think he was kind of challenging before the billions, and I don't think before the billions and show the S underneath his chest. You know, I'm a veteran, so let's go there. If you want to go, and I'm gonna start asking you. Okay, can you tell me a little bit about your background? Let's make it personal. But go ahead on that. I'm old and grumpy, man. So I'll be attacking people.
I guess it only matter on what you're looking at getting out of the interview. Are you looking to, you know? I mean, it all depends, because if you're in that mood, you're just in that mood. But a lot of times, probably the best thing is just be like, yo, this ain't this. Not only are they not looking for me, I'm not looking for them either. I'm not looking for this type of culture. I'm not looking for these type of people or these type of interview styles. Yeah, but I get what y'all saying though, for sure. Like kind of don't let nobody punk you just because they the interview.
But that's kind of you've been on site too, struggle where people I'm sure kind of they want to raise their energy, so sometime on site you got to match their energy, right? Especially from the client side, because they be like, they acting like you don't know what you talking about. I'm like, okay, I got to show you that. But go ahead, what's your thoughts?
It's been a little bit of that. It's been a little bit of that, but it's like
not a ton.
Like even though I kind of like I have a reputation in certain spaces on YouTube, it's not. I'm not like that. I mean, I'm not like confrontational, like unnecessarily confrontational.
We see you black Air Force Ones, but go ahead.
Nah, I'm firm though. I'm firm and direct, but I'm not unnecessarily confrontational. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, Gabe. I remember one scenario you told us. You were like, this person kept messaging you, and you told him, I'll get back to you in a minute. Yeah. And then you told him, I find this as disrespect. Let's get on the call after I finish.
I told him. I called him. Because he kept blowing, So I found that to be necessarily confrontational in that case. I found a necessity to address it because I don't know what this person thought, and this was at Accenture too. Is he was a managing director? So this at the time I was a manager. So what is that? So manager, senior manager, associate director, then director, senior director, and then managing director. So he was like five. So he was like 5 or 6 above me. Yeah, 5 or 6 levels above me. Not in my organization, but just like a dude, right? So he was just pressing me. He was pressing me hard. And I'm like, I kept messaging him like, I have some priority one issues that I'm going through right now that are taking my attention, and I'll respond to you and your request right after I'm finished. And he just kept boom, 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 kept blowing me up. And then to the point where I even saw him go to my LinkedIn. You know, on LinkedIn, people that like check out your profile. He even went to my LinkedIn and was trying to check out to see what, like, who am I type of thing. And I'm like, oh, all right. I see the energy. I see what's going on. This person is trying to like I don't know, like power move or power position himself above me. Like, you need to answer me right now. So yeah, that just. I told my direct manager, who was a senior manager, like, I'm about to call him and address him directly because I find this disrespectful. And he's like, whoa. I'm like, already on the call. Already on the call.
I already called him. I just
Yeah,
want to give you a heads up.
Absolutely. I just give him a heads up so he could be in the loop in the event that somebody reach out to him like, this guy is just, and he did do that. He went to other people, was telling people, oh, he's being disrespectful, he borderline disrespectful to me and this and that, and he addressed me directly and all this. I'm like, yeah, I did that. That was me. That was me. But I had screenshots of everything that happened. I had information. I told him the projects that I was on. He asked me for my leadership line or whoever's in my leadership. I copied and pasted every single part. I took a screenshot of my org chart and then copied and pasted it and put it in the chat. Then I gave him the numbers, the emails, and the names of my senior manager, my director, manager. Listen, I gave him the full gambit. I told him everything, but that's the type of stuff that you deal with a lot of times. But like to y'all point, like, I don't know. I feel like it's a lot less right now. Like when you kind of get higher, you have to put out less fires. Like you don't really have to, like people are so much more willing to help you and willing to answer your request and willing to like do what, like help you. Like I was just in a random office, right? And we all on a teams call. This ain't even people a part of my team, right? So we're in like a random teams chat because we're talking about like, I don't know, renting office space or whatever. As soon as they saw like my title and the group that I'm with, man, people start asking me if I need help with stuff, like Concur, like the travel application. Some random lady was like, listen, if you need me to be a resource for you for Concur, I'm like, it's like my second weekend. And I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, help me out. And every single time I asked her for help, she leapt off her computer and came and helped me. I'm like, all right, that's the thing that I'm starting to get used to. People actually being helpful. It's weird now to me, but I'm like, I guess
you know how it is when you up there. Yeah, people. The crazy thing is like I'm not at that level, but I help people at that level. So then people want to help me because they know I'm helping people at that level.
Listen.
You're 100% right about that.
Nah, for real.
Help me. I said, nobody want to help me.
Man, you down there. So yeah, when I was down there, like you said, it's like, dude, when you need help, but like you said, you get to a certain level, it's like,
man, I remember, I'll tell you guys, I think I told you the story before. When I first started, the first week, they did not speak to me. My whole team, it was like, they literally did not speak to me at all. Like, not even a word. Like, I went up to the guy, I asked him, like, hey, can you explain how to log into this? He pointed at the other guy.
Oh, my God.
Go ask him. I was like, I know this man did not just point at the other guy because the other guy was on the call or something, so I couldn't talk to him. But all of them were on my team. I got introduced to them. So, but again, I don't want to bring up race or anything. I'm the only black dude though. Listen, so
I've been in those situations too. I was a contractor. I was a contractor with an organization. I was new, right? This dude who like had probably. He ain't have half of the experiences that I had or the background. He brought me over to his cubicle and started to explain the concept of thinking outside the box because he thought that he literally drew a box on his little squeaky dry erase board in his cubicle. And he said, this is the box. This is outside the box. This is where I need you to think. I'm like, whoa, what the? Just a little frumpy white guy like this. I don't know. It's crazy, man. So B2B, I understand your experience. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you gotta get used to that. But like the struggle said, after a while you grow out of that, then you kind of find your lane. And then I had the opposite problem. I thought people were overly too helpful.
Word. So that's how I'm starting to feel right now.
Yeah, so you kind of go, but I think like Struggle said, you gotta figure out where you fit in there. Because I like Struggle. I tell people to their face, I'm about to go up the chain, so I'm telling you to your face. So you might want to tell your chain that I'm going up the chain because I don't argue with people at your level.
Not at all.
So I want you to be clear. I'm going up the chain, so I tell you, I don't talk behind your back. So I'm letting you know what I'm about to tell my boss. So you might want to go tell your boss so there's no confusion.
Yeah. That paper trail is
Right.
important.
There's
And
no confusion.
one thing I ran into is I had some people say things about my team,
Mhm.
and then I was like, okay, should I tell my director that they said this? They were like, essentially, like we had some issue where we did a deployment, and then there was an extra few million rows that were inputted into our database.
Mhm.
So it was taking a long time for it to like process all those records. So then it ran into us like having issues when we want to do our next deployment. So then like one of the guys, he said, yeah, some people on the team didn't take it seriously, and now I keep having to like fix fires and stuff like that, like stuff that I didn't even start. And then I was sitting here like, man, I thought he did not just
you got to
indirectly call.
No, you
call
got to
us
jump
out.
on that. I wouldn't let that stand. I don't know how to struggle. You can't say shit about my team. I'm a jump on you.
I told my director about it and told who it was, but
I'm jumping on his ass right there. I'll be like,
okay.
let's don't sugarcoat it. Do you have a problem with me or my team? If you letting us know we have a performance issue, just say it. That we definitely do. And let's not be confused. We know it's a performance issue and we're working on it. So is there something you want to get off your chest? So I want to make sure there's no, and I told people, I want to make sure there's no confusion between you and my team. Because now I don't let people indirectly attack me. I'm jumping, right? Because I learned if you don't, that shit's gonna start spiraling out of control.
Yeah.
So
I think with me being new to the organization, I'm finding myself like wanting to be like nicer. I don't know if that makes sense. Like very much to like kind of ingratiate myself amongst the team, where I'm like, where I can like observe more because I actually one of my like I had a meeting. I have a one of my past directors or my past managers. He was at Mandy and he left Mandy and he went to Raytheon. He's a senior director over there. And I actually had a conversation like he was like kind of like a mentor session with him of things to look out for. And one thing he was saying, be as observant as you possibly can. Like listen more than anything else. And I'm just like, I gotta really understand what's the temperature because I'm so removed from the day-to-day work. Yo, understand? Like, I don't like, we got people 90% to 100% chargeable. People on 100% work.
100%.
Do you know what my chargeability is? Guess what my chargeability is?
But you 20 now?
About 25, man.
Yeah.
Barely though.
Yeah.
But what does that mean?
Let me jump in on that.
So chargeability or billability, it means that you are booked to customer work.
Facts.
Is the percentage of your time that's booked to customer work.
That's how the company gets paid by billable hours too. So I was 100%.
Especially firms like consulting firms. Yeah. But like shop. But not even like barely 25%.
But you work for a bigger company. But real quick, I got to jump on that structured security. I came from DOD and it's ex-military, overly masculine, overly toxic masculine. We got to set precedent. So when I'm coming in, I'm punching you in your throat. I can be nicer later. So I'm coming in swinging. I'm coming off the top rope, grabbing the back of my heel and coming down with my elbow. I'm setting precedent, but that might not be the best way, but I'm a precedent guy. I'm punching you in the throat the first couple months because you can't F with me, but go ahead.
And I think another thing is that what is the leadership style of your organization and of your team? Because I report to a vice president of within the organization, and he's very much so like that. He's like a kind of like a servant leader, not necessarily like soft or anything, but he's very much so like very team oriented. So it's like kind of adjusting my leadership style to what that is, so we can show more of a united front. Kind of, it's just so much more than I don't do work really. Like I don't do, and that's a transition I've been making. I'm like I don't really do work, but I'm more like strategize. I set the precedents. I create. But then sales is a big piece of it too. Like really understanding the pipeline of the organization. Really bringing in new leads and being on calls and speaking. So it's just very different. It's a different muscle that I'm learning to build right right now. But
Yeah, the
I do
crazy thing is-
take the motto of I had to decide what type of leader I want to be. You know what I mean? So it's like I definitely want to go to that servant leader, right?
No, I'm with you.
Like I don't mind like leading out and giving direction, but at the same time, I don't mind rolling up my sleeves to get down in the trenches and helping you all out here.
Oh,
Especially if we in the battle. So those are the type of things that are kind of on my mind as I'm transitioning more into this role. So
no, like you said, I'm just old and grumpy now. So
there's nothing wrong
with a
that.
sledgehammer. That's all I got, man. I tell you that when you hire me, I get the things people don't want to do. I get the clients that are assholes. That's that's what I'm coming to get. I want all that smoke. So, but no, I that's definitely like you said, kind of morphing into your company. And I think that's the best way. I'm just too old now. I'm me now. I'll be 57. I ain't got much time left, man. I'm coming in with the sledgehammer, man. You got a net, I'm hitting it with a sledgehammer.
It's all different types of leadership styles.
Oh, facts. So, but like you said, and two is I think you need to try each one of those as you go up the ladder to kind of figure out what's best for you and kind of how you deal with stuff. And like you said, two is kind of follow your org chart and kind of how they want to do.
Yeah.
Hold on, let me answer this one question my man had in there. He might be gone bit there. No, I wasn't telling the 14. I didn't make the 14 work. Like B2B, the guy I was trying to make work was cool with the 14. So he was way above me. So I really couldn't make him work. So my boss was like, just sit him aside. I'm not gonna give him any work. We just gonna do our work. We're not gonna work about him. No, I can't make a 14 work, but I might interview. He was a cool guy. Long story short is when he retired from DOD as a 14, I think it was PricewaterhouseCoopers offered him $400,000. I asked him why. He goes, because I can walk into anybody's in DOD office and figure out what projects they got going on. He didn't take it though. He wanted to retire because he did 30 years in the service and 15 years civilian, and I think 10 of it counts. So he had 2 retirements. But once he could walk into people's office, and Gabe knows that's half the battle. He'd tell you what projects are coming down the pipe and really what to bid on, and that's access. Having access.
I haven't so much been on that federal side. I've done some work with like some DOD work, but I don't know that government or that
that's a different
military ranking system within the corporate environment. I'm not so familiar with that.
Okay, yeah. So I worked at DOD, and they have those because I got offered a GS-13. Now I think about it, I should have took it, but when I left DOD, I like shit. By now I could have my 20 years and my pension. I could have been retired. I think that was 2005 they offered me that, or maybe 2009. I was like, hell, that's damn near 20 years ago. I could be almost retired, but
hey guys, I do have to drop.
Okay.
I gotta drop too.
We've been on for 3 hours, man. We
the 3-hour mark, man.
We overdid. I want to appreciate everybody for joining you. So
definitely, man. Thanks for having me, man. I'm gonna drop now.
Join. Just
all right, fellas.
All right, appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Check out Before the Billions and Struggle Security. They both have great channels. I stay on for 5 minutes and see if anybody got. I appreciate it. R Squared. Yeah, we all been in there, Gabe, and of course I've probably been in the longest. Shout out to shout out to R Squared. Great stream, I appreciate that. But yeah, I can't make the GS-14 do anything. The person reported to the 14 was cool, so I couldn't make the I was calling the underling that was cool to 14. I couldn't make them work, but no, shout out. I got offered a 13 though. I probably should have took it. Kind of mistake I made, but I got a private solid advice. Just coming back to check a few things. I get into the same position. It just takes time. We study forever. We got different things. We all got channels, man. So you can all reach out to us if you got any specific questions. I've been in tech for 30 plus years. I think Struggle's 20. Shout out to my man Before the Billions. He's just getting his feet wet in the game. He's 27. Hell, my son is 34. Nah, my son's 36. So I've been in just a game a long time. So we're here to help you, man. You reach out to any of us, we definitely help you. That's shout out to my man Keep It Tech. He got me into the YouTube game, so I was gotta get a shout. It's a lot of people out here willing to help, man. So it just takes time, man. It wasn't overnight, man. Shout out to the women. Yep, Stressly out there. You gotta leave up. Yep, gotta get in there. Shout out to that. Better give him contract to someone those costs come down for such have to do. Yeah, that's how. Yeah, that's part of the game. That's part of the game. So yeah, I'll probably do another ageism video. So before my facts. So she's definitely trying to get into the game. So R Square, you might reach out to Larry. He's got some advice. He had 20 years before he transitioned over. So he could probably give you some pointers. Glad to link people up. Once again, I'm going to hang out for about another 5 minutes if anybody's got anything. Cool. Yeah, I want to glad everybody joined me. That was a long 3 hours, but I appreciate it. Shout out to my guys. They always come up before the billions and struggle security. Shout out for Keep It Tech. He was in the chat. So those are the tech bros, the tech Avengers. So that was somebody called us. So we definitely out here for you. ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. Of course, I had a bad week. I ain't checked my email yet, so I'll make sure I check that today. Anybody's looking out for us. And two is, none of us got in here overnight. The crazy thing is we all got college degrees. That's not the end all be all. You can get in with search, but we all have college degrees that was on the panel today, which I think is super interesting. Shout out to Before the Billions with the facts with the Georgia Tech. Was it Georgia State or Georgia Tech? Georgia something. I appreciate that, Larry. Thanks for joining me. I'm out, Professor Black Ops, because I got to get up on hump day tomorrow and do a little work. I think I got an early meeting. But I want to appreciate, if you need anything, ProfessorBlackOps@gmail.com. Check me out at GRC Study Hall tomorrow at 7:30. So I'm usually in the study hall, chit-chatting with those guys, doing the GRC things. Once again, I got 30 plus years in IT, and I got 20 years in security doing various jobs. So like you said, like Struggle brought up, sometimes age helps and sometimes ageism hurts. So connection sent. Okay, I appreciate it. I'm out. Everybody have a good night. Thanks for joining me. You see me out in these cybersecurity streets. Please